when you actually read about Simeon and Levi were very close. Probably you can argue that they were the closest two of all the brothers outside of Joseph and Benjamin, right? But their children are battling against one another in this dwelling, right? So Simeon says, not only is it written in Levi, but also we're going to see that that this is what Joseph was talking about. This is what Jacob was talking about in Genesis 49. Continue reading.
Verse 15. And they shall be few in the number, divided in Levi and Judah, and there shall be none of you for your sovereignty, even as also our father prophesies in his blessings.
Prophesies in his blessings, right? So Jacob, not only did Jacob talk about this, but Enoch wrote of it. So there will be a battle between the Levites and the Simeonites, instigated by the tribe of Simeon. And the tribe of Simeon would be decimated by the sons of Levi. And then it goes on to say that they shall be few in number, divided in Levi and Judah. There shall be none of you for sovereignty. Now, what is this talking about? This isn't saying that their numbers would be small altogether. It's saying that they would be small in the locations where they were. Since they were spread out, when you take a large amount of people and you spread them out over a large area, it would seem as though it's not as large as it actually is. Make sense? If there's some of these people scattered a little bit of everywhere, it would seem thinner. That the racial group would seem a lot thinner than what it actually is. Now, the presence of Simeon in the Western world is smaller for this reason, because of their battles with Levi and also their colonization by the Europeans, which we'll get into as well. Right? So they would instigate with the tribe of Levi, and they would fail horribly to their destruction, right? And they would be scattered amongst the southern kingdom of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And they would also be scattered in the northern kingdom of Ephraim, right? So what does this mean? This means that you could be from any one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Think that you're that tribe wherever you're from. Say you're from say we went over Reuben last week. You could be be amongst the Australian Aborigines, look like them, talk like them, think that you are them, get before Christ, and he puts you in a line with Simeon. You could be standing around here thinking that you're Judah. Oh yeah, my family all the way back, slave ships. Yeah, I'm Judah. Find out that you're Levi or Simeon, right? Because these two tribes are scattered within all of the destination, all the current locations of the 12 tribes of Israel, which also goes to show that your tribe, that where you come from, your tribe has nothing to do with the way that you look. Has nothing to do with the way that you look, because there's people from the tribe of Simeon that look just like Judah. There's people from the tribe of Levi that look just like Judah, because they are amongst Judah, because they are amongst Ephraim, because they are amongst Naphtali. So looks has nothing to do with what tribe you're from. If that's the case, why doesn't the tribe of Judah in America look like the tribe of Judah in Africa? We're the same people, we're from the same place, but we don't look exactly the same. Why? Because looks don't denote tribe. They don't denote lineage.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, we got sound. 1, 2, 3. All right, we got sound. Okay. Let's figure out where I can go back to and pick up.
Just pick up where you left off.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back. All right. So when we're talking about the tribe of Judah, right? In particular. So the idea that the brothers from the tribe of Judah are Negroes is too ambiguous of a term. It's too ambiguous, right? Because the Hamites, who we know to be the Berbers, are also considered to be from Negro, look Negro. They're considered to be Negroes. The brothers and sisters who we identified to be Levi are considered Negroes. Mm-hmm. The brothers and sisters in that we know to be Benjamites or the Jamaicans are considered to be Negro. So if you say that all the 12, we don't agree with the 12 tribes chart because all the tribes are Negro, then are all the tribes Judah? Interesting question, right? Mm-hmm. How if the case is that all the tribes are Negro, why do we call ourselves Negro? It's too ambiguous of a term. So when we're going through history and we're breaking down history, we have to go through it with the understanding of location and prophecy, especially when we're trying to break down the children of the tribe of Judah. Go ahead and throw the graphic up one more time, the map. I said a little bit earlier, I don't know if I could be heard. This map was drawn by hand. This was a progressive putting together of information over time, right? As I studied and as we worked through the formula to figure out who is who, right? Mm-hmm. This is what we got. And where we started was with the tribe of Levi, which is in the green. We went over last week. They are from the southern parts of Ghana, small parts of southern Ghana, through Togo and Benin, the southern parts of Niger and southeast parts of Burkina Faso, all the way over to Nigeria. That was Yoruba land, which we went over last week, right? Now, after breaking that down, now we can further examine who the other two tribes are, Judah and Benjamin, right? The blue that you see is Judah, and the red that you see is Benjamin. And we're going to break down how we know that going forward in this lesson, right? Now, the question that I stated, that I posed to those who are watching, right? We can take down the graphic. The question that I posed to those who are watching is if Judah is considered to be the Negroes, right? Where are the majority of the Negroes located? Because we say, oh, well, the Negroes in North America, right? We say, oh, yeah, the Negroes in North America, that's the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah is predominantly the Negroes of North America, right? So excluding Africa, the continent of Africa, where are the majority of the tribe of Judah located? Now we had to answer we had to answer the UK, right? The United Kingdom, right? Now, majority of the people would say, I don't know. Majority of the tribe of Judah is not located in North America, in the United States. The majority of the tribe of Judah is located outside of the continent of Africa, keep in mind, is located in Brazil, in South America. 3 times the number that was brought to that exists here in the U.S. The number is around 38 million to 40 million here in the U.S. is 91 million in Brazil. 91 million blacks from the same areas as the blacks in the United States. And that does not include those who mixed who assimilated into Brazilian culture. Mm-hmm. And that figure, that 38 million figure, does not include blacks who have mixed or who have had interracial marriages or children that are the fruit of interracial marriages. So when we say as Negroes, well, we're primarily in North America. It shows just how little we know about our own tribe. Even in the slave trade, even in the transatlantic slave trade, majority of us went to South America. Mm-hmm. I believe the number was only 2, maybe 3 million that were brought to the United States, whereas the other 6 or 7 million came to South America by the Portuguese. Mm-hmm. Didn't even know. But that's sort of the American culture. This American type attitude that has fallen onto our people, the brothers and sisters here in America, where we feel as though the world revolves around us. We have a monopolization on captivity, neglecting the brothers and sisters that went through the captivities with us. Make sense? There were just as many brothers and sisters in Brazil suffering the same captivities as us from the same areas, not a different tribe. No, these were children from the tribe of Judah in Brazil suffering the same curses that are neglected because we refuse to acknowledge that the history isn't always as you see it or as you want it to be. Oh, well, there's a small number of us in Brazil. Really? Are we really predominantly in North America? Let's break down the tribe of Judah. Let's get Genesis chapter 49, verse 8.
Genesis 49 and 8. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Mm-hmm. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies.
Okay, so what Jacob is telling Judah here during his testament or his will to his sons, he tells Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. He is going to be the king over the tribes of Israel. Right? He holds the kingship. And it says, thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, keep in mind, this is a last days prophecy. Mm-hmm. It says, let me tell you what shall befall you in the last days. Mm-hmm. So even though this does apply to times prior to Christ's birth, this more so applies to the times after Christ's birth. So when it says, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise, it's talking about the power and influence that comes with being from the tribe of Judah. Think about the level of influence that the Negroes have on the other tribes. The brothers here in North America. The brothers in Africa. The brothers in the UK. The level of cultural influence that we have on the rest of the world. Right? That's what that's talking about. Thou art he who thy brethren shall praise. They do what we do. We turn our hats to the side, they turn their hats to the side. We turn it backwards, they turn it backwards. We start rapping, they start rapping. Right? It's an indirect form of praise. When you copy someone, when you mimic what they do, you're inadvertently showing admiration towards that person or thing. Right? So let's get verse 9. Let's break down verse 9.
I'm gonna finish this off first.
Mm-hmm.
Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Thy father's children shall bow down before thee.
So it's not just this is not just Judah. This is talking about his descendants as well. Right? So Judah in the last days, keep in mind it says thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. That word hand isn't talking about isn't talking about a physical hand. It's talking about a role you play. Right? If somebody had a hand in a murder or had a hand in a robbery, they were involved. Right? So it says Judah's hand shall be in the neck of his enemies. What does that mean? That means that Judah in any empire in which he serves will always be second to the one in rulership. Right? We'll always be kept close to the enemy. We'll always be the ones physically building nations and empires and kingdoms. We will be the foundation, lay the foundation for eras. That's our hand in the enemy's neck. We'll be the neck of our enemies. Right? The children of Israel will be responsible for the power and stability of the world's greatest empires. These particular prophecies point specifically to a leadership quality that Judah holds, that he obtains. When a black man walks into a room, a real black man walks into a room, people notice. We have a certain spirit or aura about us. Right? And we're going to see that our father Judah had this quality. The ability to capture the attention. The ability to obtain the attention of anyone when he walked in the room. He walked into a kingdom. Right? Let's get verse 9, Salakia.
Verse 9. Verse 9. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion. And as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? Verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Verse 11. Binding his fowl unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk.
So the tribe of Judah would not only be the kings of Israel, but they would act as trendsetters for the earth in the last days. Right? Now, that doesn't always mean we create these trends. These could be things that are introduced to us that we use for whatever reason, and it becomes sort of a trend. For example, soul food. Soul food is a rendition of Southern cooking, right? So technically, its origins aren't from us. Its origins come from the church. Shalom, brother. The origins come from Esau, right? His origins come. Yeah. Its origins come from Esau. But when Judah got a hold of it and we started doing what we do, it became soul food. That became the trend. Everybody wanted to make soul food now. Everybody wants to eat soul food now. When somebody comes from another country to America for the first time, what are they trying to get? When it comes south, it's like, yeah, I heard about soul food. Yeah. Where can I get some? Right? The way we dress. When you look at the idea of gangster rap and different things like that. When you look in the 60s, majority of our men, even though a lot of them were hand-me-downs, we wore suits and ties. collared shirts, button-ups, khakis. That image that was given to us, the thug image, was given to us by Jewish people. That image was sold to us. But once we got a hold of it, what happened? See, Esau couldn't have put on those clothes and pulled it off. Nobody would have copied him. When you go to Europe, our women with the wide hips, the thick lips, the woolly hair. When the Wetton family moved the black family, the tribe of Judah, out of England, King James VI and the First and his son King Charles, when they were moved out of the rulership in Europe, what happened? They started wearing powdered wigs, white wigs made from sheep's hair. They started, the women wore bells to make it look like they had hips. When they put lipstick on, they made it seem like their lips were thicker. Trends. We set those too. So the main issue is Judah's ignorance to the nation's willingness to follow us. So not realizing that we have a certain level of responsibility with this spirit of leadership that has been placed on us, this charisma, this zeal that we're blessed with. And we often lead people astray as opposed to pulling them in the right direction. So when you look at the state of the earth, the scripture says that the earth cries for the children of Israel. It waits for the rising of the children of Israel. Judah is the one who leads that movement. That's why the scriptures say that he shall save the tents of Judah first. Right? So just as we were used by the nations to lead this earth into destruction and wickedness, we will be used by the Most High to lead the world out of it. Make sense? Now, when we look at the book of Joshua, and we actually look at Judah himself, the patriarch Judah, not only you see his brothers defer to him and his father, right? His father charged him with the responsibility for his brothers, not only as a leader of the sons, but also in battle. We saw when they came back, when Judah and his brothers came back and asked Jacob to take Benjamin to the king of Egypt. Jacob wouldn't let him go. He wouldn't send Benjamin. But he told Judah, Judah said, I'll take him. I'll take responsibility for him. I'll take him myself. Jacob said, okay. Right. Well, whatever happens while you're out there, if something happens to him, it's on you. Check out what happens in Joshua chapter 54 when something happened to Benjamin. Let's get Joshua chapter 54, verse 1.
Joshua 54, verse 1. And when Judah saw the dealings of Joseph with them, Judah approached him and broke open the door and came in with his brethren before Joseph. Judah kicked the door down.
He kicked the door down to Joseph's quarters. Read.
And Joseph said unto Joseph,
Judah
said unto Joseph, let it not seem grievous in the sight of my Lord. May thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word before thee. And Joseph said unto him, speak. And Judah spoke before Joseph, and his brethren were standing there before him.
So he had his brothers with him. What does he say to Joseph? Read.
And Judah said unto Joseph, surely when we first came to our Lord to buy food, thou didst consider us as spies of the land.
So Joseph recognized his brothers, but his brothers did not recognize him. Why? Because Joseph had on the makeup, he had on the same type garments that a king of Egypt would wear. So they couldn't recognize him, but he recognized them. So in order, as an excuse to bring them, without them knowing who he is, he said that they were spies. He said he believed that they were spies because they weren't Egyptian. Read.
And we brought Benjamin before thee, and thou still makest sport of us this day.
So he said, you asked us to prove that we're not spies. We did. And you asked us to bring Benjamin. Now, first of all, they were already suspicious because he was like, how do you know we have another brother? Right? He said, how do you know we have a younger brother that's not with us? Right? Read.
Verse 4. Now, therefore, let the king hear my words, and send I, pray thee, our brother, that he may go along with us to our father, lest thy soul perish this day with all the souls of the inhabitants of Egypt.
So Judah said, if you don't give me my brother, if you don't stop playing these games, I'm going to kill you in this whole city. Read.
Dost thou not know that two of my brethren, Simeon and Levi, did unto the city of Shechem and unto the 7 cities of the Amorites on account of our sister Dinah, and also what they did do for the sake of their brother Benjamin?
So he said, do you not know who we are? We got a reputation. 2 of my brothers destroyed 8 cities, one being Shechem and the 7 cities of the Amorites, because of my sister. Now, what do you think they would do to you for Benjamin? But check out what Judah says next. Read.
Verse 6. And I, with my strength, who am greater and mightier than both of them, come this day upon thee and thy land, if thou art willing to send our brother.
Judah said, I'm stronger than both of them. That sound like brothers, don't it? That sound like us. When you look at majority of arguments or fights that start in our communities, they start because of what? Oh, nah, you're not better than me at that. Nah. I'm the best out here. I'm the best in the city. Nah, I'm the best in the country. Ain't nobody better than me at this. See, it's the same spirit when we look forward in the future. It's the same spirit of Judah that wound up having us conquered in Africa. We're going to examine that too. So he says, and I with my strength am stronger than both of them. So what you think I'm going to do to you?
That's right.
Read.
Verse 33. And Judah spoke unto his brother Naphtali, and he said unto him, make haste and go now and number all the streets of Egypt, and come and tell me. And Simeon said unto him, let not this thing be a trouble to thee. Now I will go to the mount and take up a large stone from the mount and level it, every one in Egypt, and kill all that are in it.
So they making strategy. They're standing here and making strategy. So Judah told Naphtali, he said, all right, go number all the streets, because as you're going to see, Naphtali is the fastest of all of the brothers, right? They used them as a messenger. So he said, Naphtali, you go and number all the streets. And Simeon said, all right, so I'm going to go up there and I'm going to get a big boulder and I'm going to aim it at the city. And if they try something, we're going to drop it and we're going to level everybody that's in his path. They will kill everybody that's in his path. So he's sitting up here making war strategy. Read.
Verse 34. And Joseph heard all these words that his brethren spoke before him. And they did not know that Joseph understood them, for they imagined that he knew not to speak Hebrew.
So they changed their language to strategize. They were speaking Hebrew in front of Joseph, thinking that he didn't understand Hebrew. It's almost like when you're in a room full of people who speak Spanish and they think that you can't understand Spanish. They start talking to you like, well, I understand what you're saying, but right? If they don't know that you don't speak that you speak Spanish, right? So they're talking about their whole strategy in front of Joseph, thinking that he can't understand Hebrew. What's Joseph's reaction? Read.
Verse 35. And Joseph was greatly afraid at the words of his brethren, lest they should destroy Egypt. And he commanded his son Manasseh, saying, Go now and make haste and gather unto me all the inhabitants of Egypt and all the valiant men together, and let them come to me now upon horseback and on foot, and all sorts of musical instruments. And Manasseh went and did so.
So you're looking at he's afraid. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh man, you got Simeon and Levi by themselves is a problem, but then you got all the other brothers here too. That means Dan, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, all of them are there. He said they making war strategy. Right? Mm-hmm. Now keep in mind, all of this is being conducted by Judah. Right? All of this battle strategy is being conducted by Judah. Right? And he sends Manasseh, right? Manasseh being the first son of Joseph. At the time, I believe he was 13 or 14 years old. Mm-hmm. Read.
Verse 36. And Naphtali went as Judah had commanded him. For Naphtali was light-footed as one of the swift stags.
Now remember, when you read Genesis 49, it says Naphtali is a hind let loose. Mm-hmm. He's a quick deer. Mm-hmm. Read.
And he will go upon the ears of corn. They will not break under him.
He could move so swiftly, he could run on top of ears of corn without breaking them. So in the time where Judah told Naphtali to go and number the streets, not Simeon told the Judah that he was going to go and get the boulder, and Joseph told Manasseh to go and get the armies. In that time, Naphtali was already back. That's how quick he was. Mm-hmm. Read.
Verse 37. And he went and numbered all the streets of Egypt and found them to be 12. And he came hastily and told Judah. And Judah said unto his brethren, hasten you and put on every man his sword upon his loins, and we will come over Egypt and smite them all. And let not all the remnant remain.
Judah is ready to destroy this city on account of Benjamin. Now, this is important. Right now, it doesn't seem too important. It doesn't seem too large. But when we see what's prophesied and what Judah is commanded to do in the future, we'll further understand what's going on here between him and his brother. Read.
Verse 38. And Judah said, behold, I will destroy 3 of the streets with my strength, and you shall each destroy 1 street. And when Judah was speaking this thing, behold, the inhabitants of Egypt and all the mighty men came toward them with all sorts of musical instruments and with a loud shouting.
Judah said, y'all can take 1 street each. I'm going to take 3. I'm going to take 3. Right? Drop down to verse 41.
Verse 41. And when the sons of Jacob saw these troops, they were greatly afraid of their lives, for their lives. And Joseph did so in order to terrify the sons of Jacob to become tranquilized.
So Joseph was just trying to intimidate them. He was trying to stop them. He didn't want to fight them. He just wanted them to stop, to relax by using fear. But what does Judah do? Read.
Verse 42. And Judah, seeing some of the brethren terrified, said unto them, why are you afraid whilst the grace of God is with us? Continue.
Yep.
And when Judah saw all the people of Egypt surrounding them at the command of Joseph to terrify them, only Joseph commanded them, saying, do not touch any of them.
So Joseph didn't actually want to fight. He just wanted to strike fear into the hearts of his brothers. Judah said, what you scared of? He said, why y'all scared? We got God on our side. We got the Most High protecting us. What y'all scared of? So not only was Judah the one burdened with the responsibility from Jacob, but he was also their leader in battle and their spiritual leader. Right? He said, what y'all scared of? What y'all scared of? Come on now. Read.
Verse 43. Then Judah hastened and drew his sword and uttered a loud and bitter scream. And he smote with his sword, and he sprang upon the ground, and he still continued to shout against all the people.
So he said, you know what? I'll show you. I'll show you the power that we have over. If you're scared, let me go first. Read.
And when he did this thing, the Lord caused the terror of Judah to be and his brethren to fall upon the vehement men, valiant men, and all the people that surrounded them. Verse 45. And they all fled at the sound of the shouting, and they were terrified and fell upon one upon the other. And many of them died as they fell. And they all fled before Judah and his brethren and from before Joseph.
So just with a shout, with a shout from Judah, he killed a part of the army. They just dropped dead from fear. Think about the power that the Most High had blessed the children of Israel, specifically Judah, with. To the point to where all he had to do was shout. And the Most High and his power caused for such fear to be struck in these men to where many of them ran and some of them died.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
This is why the scriptures say, talk about waking the sleeping lion as an old lion who shall rouse him up. Nobody want to wake up, don't want to wake Judah up. But we're going to get into the context of what that actually means in a minute as well. Go ahead and read verse 46.
Verse 46. And whilst they were fleeing, Judah and his brethren pursued them unto the house of Pharaoh.
So the brothers weren't even afraid anymore. The other patriarchs weren't even afraid anymore. Judah said, you know what? Let me show you. Let me take the lead. And by the time he finished, whatever it was that he did, all the brothers were like, oh, we good. And they followed behind Judah in pursuit of the house of Pharaoh. Read.
And they all escaped. And Judah again sat before Joseph and roared at him like a lion, and gave a great and tremendous shriek at him. And the shriek was heard at a distance. And all the inhabitants of Succoth heard it. And all Egypt quaked at the sound of the shriek. And all of the walls of Egypt and of the land of Goshen fell from the shrieking of the earth. And Pharaoh also fell from his throne upon the ground.
Read.
And also all the pregnant women of Egypt and Goshen miscarried when they heard the noise of the shrieking, for they were terribly afraid.
That's Judah. Remember the falling of the walls of Jericho? When we gave a shout as a nation? Right?
Wow.
That's the power that Judah was blessed with. Now that's not a power that's temporary. Right? That was something that was prophesied to continue for generations. Our children as well. These qualities. But these qualities within the men and the women of Judah lie dormant. Why? Because that power was stripped from us. Keep in mind, even though Judah was the one who shouted, it was the power of the Most High that caused the effect, that brought the fear. So when the God who supplies the power, we are not serving the God who supplies the power, what does that God do? He takes away the strength. Right? Samson, he cut his hair. What happened? His strength was gone. Right? So when the tribe of Judah decides to come back, we'll be blessed with the same strength that was given to our father. And part of it comes from who we are as a nation, being descended directly from Adam, from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob. There's a certain level of power that comes with that, which is why Hosea, when we look at the book of Hosea, it says the strength of Ephraim's strength has been consumed, yet he knoweth it not. So part of that is within our inheritance, within our bodies, within our bloodline, that causes us to be as strong and powerful as we are. The strongest, the fastest, the smartest. Right? So with one shout, he got walls falling, earth quaking, the Pharaoh fell from his throne, women are having miscarriages, right?
Mm.
That is the power of Judah. and this power is no secret to Judah either. He knows. Judah said, what do you have to fear? What are you fearing for?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
God.
That's the immense power that was bestowed upon Judah. Now let's get the responsibility. Let's get Joshua chapter 56, 2 chapters forward, 56 and 8.
Joshua chapter 56, verse 8. And Jacob said unto Judah, I know, my son, that thou art a mighty man for thy brethren.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Did he say a mighty man over thy brethren?
For thy brethren.
For thy brethren. That means that, that even though Judah is the king of his people, he is also the servant of his people.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Christ was a servant. David, although he was a king, he was a servant of his people. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Jacob told Judah, I know, my son, that thou art a mighty man for thy brethren.
Mm-hmm.
How is he instructed to use his strength? Read.
Reign over them, and thy sons shall reign over their sons forever.
Mm-hmm. Read.
Only teach thy sons to the bow and the weapons of war,
Mm-hmm.
in order that they might fight the battles of their brother who will rule over their enemies.
Check that out.
Over his enemies.
Over his enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So Judah's power and might would be to rule over the children of Israel, not only to rule over them, but to protect them. To come to the aid of them.
Mm-hmm.
When someone comes against our baby brother, which we saw,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't know Joseph was his brother. But all he knew is that this dude who's the king over Egypt took my baby brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I was specifically told to bring him back safe. So now we got a problem.
Right.
So you see how that can't, that's why I had this scripture put in here. Because it comes back around full circle. Judah was already operating in the gifts or in the testament that he was given by Jacob. That responsibility was already placed on him. So because Judah was mightier than his brothers, because he was stronger, because he was more powerful than his brothers, he was tasked or used by the Most High to lead and defend his brothers. Not just for that time, but for generations to come.
God.
The children of Judah were commanded to be skilled warriors for the purpose of defending our brothers, as Judah did in Egypt with his brothers. Right?
God.
It's not by accident. See, and it's also not by accident that we've been programmed to hate our brothers.
Mm.
Think about it. If Judah didn't know that Benjamin was his brother, he wouldn't know to defend him.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can make him forget his heritage, make him forget who his brothers are, he doesn't know to come to the aid of them.
Yep.
Remember what the scripture says. Judah shall no more vex Ephraim, and Ephraim shall no longer envy Judah. This whole issue between the light-skinned, dark-skinned, you don't look like me idea was ingrained in us in slavery. Willie Lynch wasn't just the United States. It was enacted in Brazil as well, which we're going to get into. Where they made, even though they had us dwelling together in the same camps with the tribe of Asher, who was originally in Brazil, even though we're living in the same lands, they made us hate them because of the way that they looked. We're going to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that there's systemic racism in Brazil against dark skin, against those who are darker skinned, and vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that if we know who our brothers are, we come to their defense.
Right.
We come to their aid because that's what we're tasked to do. We take care of our own. Right? Let's go back to Genesis 49, verse 9.
Genesis chapter 49, verse 9. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up.
Now it says Judah is a lion's whelp. A lion's whelp is a cub, a young lion. He's a young lion, right? Read.
He stooped down. He crouched as a lion.
Okay, so it says Judah he's gone up from the prey. That means that he's just finished killing. He just finished eating, right? And it says he stooped down and he crouched as a lion. That means that he's resting. He's sleeping. So Judah's a young lion. He just finished hunting. He's tired. Right? He's tired. So he's resting. Right? Without disturbance, by the way. Nobody's going to mess with a sleeping lion.
That's right.
Right? Read.
And as an old lion, who shall rouse him up?
Now, a lot of people see old lion as an inability, right? Old lions can't fight or aren't as vigilant. When you look in the Hebrew, that word is not old lion, it's lioness. A female lion. Why? Because a lioness poses more danger than a male lion. Why? Lioness are faster. They're not more powerful, but they're faster and they're more vicious. Why? Because they are the hunters. Do you see where I'm going here? It says he's sleeping and no one will wake him because the danger he poses. He becomes that much more dangerous. You awake him from his slumber, he's energized, he's rested. And it makes him that much more dangerous. Right? It would be a safer bet for a person to wake up a male lion than it would be a lioness. And any zoologist, any person who deals with animals can tell you that. You would have better luck living, waking up a male lion than you would a female lion. Right? So what it's saying here is that Judah is a young lion. He's gone up from the prey. He's just eaten, so he's resting, right? And as a lioness, who shall rouse him up? Who will wake him up? Who's going to wake this dangerous beast of an animal? You saw what Judah did. What the fear that he struck into the Egyptians. The power, all he had to do was yell, and part of their army dropped dead. That's the danger that he poses. So who's going to wake up this lion? Right? This is why the nations worked so hard for all of these years to keep the tribe of Judah asleep and subservient. Whatever you do, don't let them get the truth. Don't let them know who they are. Don't let them know who their brothers are. And if they do wake up, convince them that those people that are their brothers aren't their brothers. Because the last thing we need is for the children of Israel to not only wake up to who they are, but find out what we've been doing to their brothers. See, this is the position Reuben was supposed to have as the oldest brother, as the oldest son. Right? He was the might, the dignity, the beginning of Jacob's power. This was supposed to be his position, the protector of his brothers. But because of his fall, that fell to Judah. Right? That's the last thing that they want. They say, dang, we done woke up a lion and the lioness is grouchy. And now I just remembered that it's hungry. Right? That's the last thing you want. Dang. Okay, so now he wakes up. He's angry that we lied to him about who he was. He's hungry for his kingdom, and he's now found out what we were doing to his family. I would call that a recipe for disaster. Let's get verse 10.
Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah.
The scepter shall not depart from Judah. What does a scepter represent? A scepter is a leadership staff. It represents kingship, rulership, right? So the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Read.
Nor a lawgiver from between his feet.
Nor a lawgiver from between his feet, his position of rulership. Read.
Until Shiloh comes.
Shiloh means peaceable one. It's referring to Christ. So, according to Jacob's prophecy, Christ is supposed to come through the line or the tribe of Judah. That's why the scripture says it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah.
Yeah.
So the promise of him coming through a specific lineage was even before David. Because keep in mind, it was promised to David that what? That Christ would come through the seed of David. That word seed in the Hebrew and in the Greek is sperma. It's physical. It's flesh through intercourse.
Right.
Right? That's what was promised and is being promised to Judah here as well. So the peaceable one would come through the tribe of Judah. And when we look at the lineage of Judah, you see that we go all the way down from Adam all the way to Christ, from Joseph to Christ. Read.
And unto him shall the gathering of the people be.
And unto Christ shall the gathering of the people be. The 12 tribes who are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth would be gathered using Christ through the tribe of Judah. That's the promise. Let's get what Deuteronomy, because keep in mind, there were two testaments. We went over it last week and the week before that. Right? Judah has a testament from Jacob, and he has a testament from Moses. Let's get what Moses told the tribe of Judah in Deuteronomy 33, verse 7.
Deuteronomy 33, verse 7. And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, Hear, O Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people.
It says, Hear, O Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Right? Who is his people? Who is Judah's people? The other tribes of Israel. Those are his people. We reign over them. Right? Read.
And let his hands be sufficient for him.
Read.
And be thou a help to him from his enemies.
And be thou a help to him from his enemies. Right? So what it's saying is let his hands be sufficient for him. We build, right? We don't need tools. Our hands are sufficient. Our works are sufficient. Right? The power to build and the power to destroy has been placed in the tribe of Judah's hands. Right? And the Most High, and whatever we do, if we're in line with the Most High, would assist us. He would be there to work on our behalf, just as he worked on behalf of Judah. It wasn't Judah who struck that. It wasn't Judah alone who struck that fear into that army. It was the Most High's power, his hand behind Judah.
That's right.
So just as he did for our forefather, he does for us today. But we have to be in line with his power.
That's right.
So to identify Judah, we have to identify these three things.
Yeah.
Number one, the curses of Deuteronomy 28. Number two, the spirit of leadership. Right? The world looks to us, right? The world has to look to them. They have to be the trendsetters, right? And number three, always at the neck of the nation in power. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to get into identifying the tribe of Judah. One moment. All right. So continuing forward, right? So we just broke down Judah himself, our forefather Judah, and the prophecies concerning him, right? Now we must break down and identify who the tribe of Judah is today. Please lock in, because we start a winding road toward figuring this out, right? Now, unfortunately, when going into the tribe of Judah, we have to prove that the Israelites, specifically the southern kingdom, were people of color. Why? Because when you think of Judah or you think of Jews, the first person that comes to your mind are the Edomites or Romans that are in Israel posing as Judah. Revelations 2:9 and 3:9. So we already broke down that the children of Israel were people of color in a previous lesson that we did, Beyond the Shadow of a Doubt, right? When we were answering a question after a lesson, I believe it was on Apocrypha or something like that, right? Where we had a question to break down that the children of Israel were people of color. So we're not going to go too deeply into this aspect of it. And if you want to have more information, you can go and visit it there, right? Let's get the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, page 213 under Ham.
Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
All right. So Zondervan Bible Dictionary makes a clear distinction between the Negroes and the Hamites. And he makes it clear. The dictionary makes it clear. Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. Right? Keep in mind that America, the Negroes in America, are specifically acknowledged as Negroes, right? When you use the term Negro, they're usually referring to the brothers and sisters that are here in the United States of America, right? Now, when you look at the entire nation of Israel, at one point, the nation as a whole was entirely Negro, right? Just like at one point, the entire earth were all black people, right? That's how it was at one point in history, right? But when we examine who the Hamites are, who are not Negroes, keep in mind, it states that they are majority Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. And that doesn't consider the subsects that come from them. For example, East Indians. Yes, East Indians, the people in India, they are Hamites. Right? Can somebody get me geography treatise, a treatise of geography? I'll probably have to go over there and grab it in a second. But there's something I want to get out of there. Yeah, I believe it's on the 3rd shelf. It's called a treatise. It's in it's like a greenish off-white color book. Now the North Africans, right, are primarily from the country of Mauritania all the way over to Egypt and Sudan, right? All the way over to Egypt and Sudan. 3rd shelf. 3rd shelf. Should be over there. Worst case scenario, I'll just come over there and grab it. But there's something that I wanted to get in there. Why? Because this is how you can tell the difference between a Hamite and a Negro. Right? I'm gonna come get it real quick. Elder, go ahead and read the definition of the Zondervan Bible Dictionary one more.
Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
All right. So once again, a clear distinction is made between the Negroes and the Hamites. Now, if you want to tell the difference between a Negro and a Hamite, it comes down to the smallest, nearly the smallest of details, right? The Hamite looks like us in appearance, but they have straight, stringy hair, right? Now, this is a treatise of physical geography, on physical geography. We went over this, I believe it was in part 2 under Rubin.
Yep.
Right? This is page 298. It says, but the texture of the hair is supposed to exhibit permanent distinction. This, however, differs from the only in degree. For the Negro, or commonly used, or to use a common or more proper expression, the African race exhibit a variety of structure from the most crisp curling of flowing locks. Microscopic examination has showed that the most crisp human hair does not differ in width and structure. For the most straight, the matting property of wool, arising from the small notches in the hairs, being equally absent in both. The term woolly, indeed, must have been applied to the African's hair by persons who were acquainted only with the wool of one kind of sheep. For the ovine race, the wool is oftener straight than crisp. So first of all, Middle Eastern sheep are the only ones with the type of wool that resembles our hair. That's number one. And number two, wool is specific to the African race's hair, right? Now, the problem with the problem that arises at the end of that text is that they said the version of sheep that has hair that is similar to ours, the woolly texture, only exists in the Middle East. Hamites are not from the Middle East. So what is showing here is that the woolly texture is specific to these Negroes that Zondervan says are not Hamites. I have pictures. When we look at the modern, when we look at who the Hamites are today, according to history, they're known as the Berbers of North Africa. Berbers, right? That is B-E-R-B-E-R, right? Now, there's a complete distinction between the two, and one has to do with the texture, right? Black people's hair is woolly, right? Their hair is coarse and straight. Go ahead and pull up the picture that we have. This is a drawing of the Berbers. Now, for those who are in the room, it's on the screen back there, right? As you can see, their hair is straight. When you look at their faces, they look like regular black people. But when you actually examine, the difference between them and us is their hair. Let's get the next picture. These are Hamites. They got the thick lips, they got the cheekbones, they got the nose, but look at their hair. Right? Let's get the next picture. Same thing. They look like us. The nose, the cheeks, the skin color, but look at their hair. Right? Next picture. Now, this is after the introduction of the Arabs into North Africa, which I'm going to go over here in a second. That is a sister, a Berber. Looks like one of us. She looks black. She looks like, but ultimately what we find is that she's from North Africa. She's a Berber. Next picture. This is another brother from North Africa, also a Berber. They look like us in facial features, But when you actually take into account what we know concerning the woolly hair texture being specific to the Negroes, we find the difference. You can go ahead and take down the picture. Now, North Africa looks primarily Arab. Why? Because in history, we know that the Arabs conquested their way from the Middle East and took down Egypt. And from Egypt, they branched out through North Africa, bringing Islam and quelling the Berbers, right? So we're seeing a mixture between the Arab and the Berber race. This is where East Indians come from. This is why the East Indian culture has a mixture of Middle Eastern tradition and Hamite tradition. When you mix a Berber with an Arab, you get East Indian or an Indian-looking person, right? This is also how Islam got to North Africa. Let's get the map, the map one more time. Brown is Hamite, which is Berber and Arab. That's Hamite land. So when you look at the borders of Ham, you see that it extends from Mauritania up to Morocco, over Nigeria, over Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, all the way down to Ethiopia and Somalia. That is all Berber land. That is all Berber land, Hamite land, right? Now, when you look at the map itself, you'll say, well, there's some blue, there's some red, there's some green in there. You have blue, red, and green ticks inside of that land. Why? The sub-Saharan slave trade. Many don't know about the sub-Saharan slave trade, but that happened a couple of hundred years prior to the transatlantic slave trade, where they were taking brothers and sisters from Mali, Niger, Chad, the Central African Republic, South Sudan, as well as Central Africa, the interior parts of Africa, and sending them to the Middle East. And they were sending them to Europe and trading them to Asia. So these trade routes that pass through North Africa is where some of our people and tribes are located, right? Because you have trade stops. There were people in North Africa, there are Arabs and Berbers in North Africa that were purchasing slaves. Therefore, some of our people are still located in those areas. Now, the primary area where they sourced slaves from were Benjamite lands, Mozambique, Uganda, Kenya, right? Burundi. Those were areas where they were primarily, those were the slaves that are primarily being sent to the Middle East. So my question is, for those who deny the 12 tribes chart, where is Benjamin in the Middle East? Since we know that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, which actually it was millions since the slave trade lasted longer than the transatlantic slave trade, where are they in the Middle East? They've assimilated. They've assimilated. Now, Elder Johannes and Bishop Michael are going to be in the chat a little bit later. Okay. And they brought up a tribe that's located in West Africa known as the Fulani, or the Fulan tribes in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, the Fulani had their origins in North Africa. They're Hamitic in origin, right? And when you look at their history, they migrated through trade to West Africa. Now, the Fulani tribes are the Fulani tribes are Hamite, but they assimilated into West African culture, which goes to show Now, keep in mind that the myth is that Africans were selling Africans. Even though when we examine the history, we're going to see that it wasn't Africans selling Africans. It wasn't Africans selling Africans. It was the Fulani tribe and the Arabs selling Africans, or selling sub-Saharan Africans or Israelites. So it wasn't Africans selling Africans. It was Arabs and Berbers selling Israelites.
Wow.
And it started with the Arabs first. It didn't begin with Esau. It started with the Arabs. And I'm going to show you why in a moment. How it started with the Arabs first. Right?
Oh.
So the Hamites assimilated into Israelite lands in sub-Saharan Africa. But we'll discuss this more in depth a little bit later. But you see how people just sort of, you guys are so, people who deny the 12 tribe chart are so ready to lump everybody in, everybody in West Africa in. When sub-Saharan Africa, the Fulani tribe is one of the largest ethnic groups in sub-Saharan Africa. So you're saying, oh, well, those people are Israelites because of the way that they look, not realizing that they've assimilated into our culture. What does that mean? If you start marrying people who are already in sub-Saharan Africa, what does your straight hair begin to do? So now you have people from the Fulani tribe who have thick, woolly hair, even though they are clearly Berbers. Their history is Berber. Oh, but a brother put in the comment section, he said, well, they ain't Israelites unless they got woolly hair. I don't care about the skin color, but the hair matters. You got to have the woolly hair in order to be an Israelite. So are the Fulani Israelites?
Wow.
Now, granted, there are Israelite men who married Fulani women. Therefore, their children are Israelites, even though they're half Hamitic. Perfect example. Joseph. Joseph's wife was a Hamite. She was an Egyptian. But Manasseh and Ephraim are still from the stock of Joseph. They are still technically one of the tribes of Israel. So what do you think Manasseh and Ephraim's hair look like? Think about it. If Joseph had woolly hair and the Egyptian woman had straight coarse hair, what do you think Manasseh and Ephraim's hair looked like? So now we're already seeing the change in Ephraim and Manasseh. And we know their prophecy was Ephraim shall become the fullness of Gentiles. Or the fullness of the nations. See, that's how murky the waters get with this, even when we're looking at Negroes.
Right.
So when we say that the majority of Manasseh is in Cuba, or when we say that the majority of those in Australia are Reuben, we're not saying that everyone born in Australia is Reuben. Just like we can't say that everyone in West Africa that looks like that has woolly hair is an Israelite. You see how the double standard? Oh, well, everybody in sub-Saharan Africa is Israelite, but you trying to say that everybody in look, there's white people that's born in Hispaniola. There's white people born there. So, we're not calling them Israelites, but you're calling Fulani people Israelites. Right? The double standard. And it even becomes even more murkier. Why? Because you have the Bantu, who are Benjamin, right? You have the Crew tribe in a predominantly Judite land. But we're going to get into that in a minute. Let's continue proving that the children of Israel were people of color. Now, remember, Zondervan Bible Dictionary said that one of the nations that was descended from the dark races were the Egyptians, right? So that means that the Egyptians were what? A dark race of people. Till this day, they are still a dark race of people. They have been mixed with the Arabs. They have been knocked out of power by the Arabs. But the people themselves are a dark race of people. Let's get Acts chapter 21, verse 37.
Acts chapter 21, verse 37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek?
Canst thou speak Greek? Read.
Verse 38. Art thou that Egyptian?
That what?
Egyptian.
That what?
Egyptian.
That what?
Egyptian.
Read.
Which before these days madest an uproar, and leddest out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers.
What did Paul say? Read.
But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city of Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people.
Think about that for a second. We know, according to the book of Romans, that Paul is from what tribe? Benjamin. Paul is a Benjamite. One of the tribes left in the southern kingdom after the fall of the northern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi.
Right.
Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian. And he had to go as far as to clarify that he is a Jew. And if the Egyptians are, now keep in mind, they didn't say, aren't thou that Arab?
God.
Because you know they were olive colored. It says, aren't thou that Egyptian? How was he mistaken for an Egyptian if the Egyptians were white?
Exactly.
How was he mistaken for an Egyptian if the Jews were white? He was mistaken for a dark race of people because he was from a dark race of people. We just read in a treatise on physical geography that woolly hair is specific to the Negro people. Why was Christ described in the book of Revelations as a man having a hair like pure wool, like white wool, when that hair texture is specific to Negroes? Because Paul and Christ and his disciples and the children of Israel were Negroes. Not only that, but he said, I am a Jew of Tarsus. Where is Tarsus? In Sicilia. In Spain. So there are even more black Jews in Spain. And you know what? When we get into the history of the children of Judah and the slave trade, we're going to show just how many of them were in Tarsus. He said, not only am I a Jew, but I'm a Jew from Spain. How many of you guys know that the market was full of black Jewish slaves in Spain? We're going to get into that. So when we're identifying the tribe of Judah, we've already identified that they're people of color. That's number one. We've proven that they're people of color. Now we have to track their history to figure out where they went. Right? Why? Because when you go through the history, right, we have more of a clear painting because history was more refined by the time the children of Israel in the southern kingdom, the three tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, were removed from Jerusalem before we were exiled, right? So that means we have a more refined history. So who in here knows when the Southern Kingdom was conquered and by who? Who remembers? The Northern Kingdom was 721 BC. The Southern Kingdom was conquered when? 70 AD. Right? So we need to go back to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD and track where the Jews went. Because remember, what did Christ prophesy to the church, to the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi? He said, when you shall see the city compassed with armies, flee into the mountains. Let's get from Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor.
In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people.
Now, we already went over the history in a previous lesson, breaking down what happened to the children of Israel that decided to stay, right, from the book of Josephus. All the horrors that were happening within those walls, right, from starvation to dehydration to straight up murder. A woman had to eat her child, right? So this happened to the people in 70 AD that decided not to take heed to Christ's warning. Now, another thing I want to clarify, not all those who escaped Jerusalem went the same direction. I'm going to say that again. Not all that escaped Jerusalem went the same direction. Same thing as when the Northern Kingdom was freed under the Assyrians. When they decided to leave, some decided we're going to go into a land where never mankind dwelt. And there were some who decided to stay. Right? The same thing goes for the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Some decided to go in the direction we're about to talk about, and some decided to go further east into Asia Minor, or back further into the Middle East. Let's get it.
During the period of Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews, Israelites, fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves.
Now, this isn't the first time that the markets were full of black Jewish slaves. We're going to get into the other time when the markets were full of black Jewish slaves. There's a lot of times when the markets were full of black Jewish slaves. But 70 AD, so in 70 AD, they were fleeing from the persecution of the Romans. So many, about 1 million, fled into Africa. Now, keep in mind, this is the time of the Romans, the Roman Empire. This is after the Greeks. North Africans, which at the time was possessed by Berbers and Arabs, had already been taken into possession by the Romans. They had agreements, treaties with the Romans. So in order for the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi to really escape persecution of the Romans, they would have had to go into sub-Saharan Africa, where Rome had no jurisdiction. I'm going to say that again. Egypt, Ethiopia, Libya, all of North Africa that was possessed by the Berbers and the Arabs, there was jurisdiction of the Romans and the Greeks. It wouldn't have been safe for these 1 million Jews to flee into North Africa. Why? Because they would be found. The jurisdiction of the Romans was there. The only place in Africa where Rome did not have jurisdiction was in sub-Saharan Africa. Right? So after making their way into Africa, this point in history, it's easy to identify their presence and legacies in Africa. It's not hard. Right? The hardest part is identifying what tribe is where within Africa. I'm going to say that again. It's not hard to find the presence of Israelites in Africa. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. The hard part is being able to figure out which tribe is which. Why? Because Israelites are a tribal nation, meaning that we divide ourselves and the land as we once divided it in the land of Israel. Take into account the Native Americans. They divided themselves into tribes. Sub-Saharan Africa divided into tribes. When you look at the South Pacific Islands, they're divided into tribes. Australian Aborigines divided into tribes. When they arrived in the Tainos, the 5 Caciques, they were divided into tribes. So Israel is a tribal nation. That's what makes this difficult. It makes it a little bit easier, actually, because when you have everybody all mixed together, which eventually that's how it shook out, it makes it a lot harder to identify who is where, right? But what we do know is that they divided their land according to the tribe, just as we did in Israel. The hard part is figuring out who is who, right? It is important to know. Go ahead and put the map back up on the screen, please, Elder. Brown is Hamite and Berber land. Red is Benjamite land. Blue is from the tribe of Judah. And green is the tribe of Levi. Now, ignore the ticks, because the ticks are basically showing that certain of other tribes were scattered within those lands, right? And I put that there to make it clear. Certain lands, even though they were the large majority one tribe, does not mean that another tribe was not present in that land after slave trades. I'm going to say that again. Just because one particular part of the land is majority one people, right? You see, for example, you look at Senegal, Gambia, and Mali. It's primarily blue. It's primarily Judah. That does not mean that there weren't any Levites in that land. There weren't any Levite tribes in that land. When you look at Yoruba land, that does not mean that there weren't any Benjamites or Judites in that land, because there were, right? This is just how the land was divided by the tribes themselves. Make sense?
Huh.
And the waters got even murkier after things like the sub-Saharan slave trade, the Indian Ocean slave trade. And during that time, they had become even more spread out. Why? Slave markets, pit stops. Think about it. There weren't a ton of slave ports. So when you look at the Ghanaian slave port, a lot of people would think that the majority of Israelites, or the majority of Negroes, came from Ghana. Right? That's the thought. A lot of people, oh yeah, a large amount of Israelites came from Ghana. No, the primary slave port was in Ghana. So that means that they were taking people from Senegambia. They're taking people from Guinea. They're taking people from Mali and Liberia and bringing them to Ghana to put them on ships at that port. So it would seem as though the majority of slaves were coming from Ghana, even though they're being pulled from other places and shipped out from Ghana. So what do you think happens during that time period? People escape. People flee. People run. And if I'm from Senegal and I've been drugged all the way to Ivory Coast and I figure out a way to escape, I'm in Ivory Coast now, not Senegambia. So now I am a Senegalese Gambian I am a Senegalese or Gambian or Sierra Leonean who is now in Ivory Coast. Right? A lot of slave ports were located in the land of Chad. in Chad and in South Sudan and in Sudan during the times of the sub-Saharan slave trade. So at these markets, which were set up all across Africa, if you take someone from Mali and they're sold to someone in Algeria, now you have Mali or somebody from Timbuktu in Algeria. And when you have so many different slave trades, the transatlantic, the sub-Saharan, the Indian Ocean slave trades, sending everybody everywhere, what happens to these people? They get mixed up. So that even goes even further to show you as a Negro from the Negro tribes don't even know who the heck you are. So who are you to tell somebody else who they are? It's not as easy as people think. What I'm trying to make clear here is that what I'm showing you is a rough estimate. What I'm giving you is what I know according to history, but nothing is set in stone. Nothing. You may have been on the slave ships like everybody else, but you could be a Fulani. Be from the Fulani tribe, for all you know. Right? It's not as easy to calculate these things as people would like. That's why Christ said that he would divide us. We can't do it. It's not possible for us to do it. It's too complicated. It's too mixed up. That's what happens when you break the Most High's law, right? Confusion. Right? So let me break down how we got this map. We broke down Levi last week, right? And we were able to find Levi in Yoruba land, which is primarily the green parts that we showed you on the map, right? And they were not only in these lands, but keep in mind what was prophesied of Levi. They were scattered throughout all of sub-Saharan Africa. And after the slave trades, you can find certain tribes and remnants of people throughout northern Africa, right? This simplifies our search for Judah. Now we know who Judah is not. We're figuring out who Judah is not. By utilizing trade maps, we can figure out which countries were sent where. And we can use prophecy to understand the difference between Benjamin and Judah. Why do I say that the way that I say it? Because somebody could ask this question. Well, how do you know that Benjamin wasn't sent to the U.S. and Judah wasn't sent to Jamaica? Right? How do you know that the people that the tribe of Benjamin wasn't sent to Haiti and the tribe of Levi wasn't sent to Jamaica? Even further, during the transatlantic slave trade, the slaves that were sent to North and South America, some of them were from Levite and Benjamite tribes. So the water gets even murkier. You got Levites being sent through the slave trade to the U.S. and to South America and even to Jamaica. You got people from you got brothers and sisters from who are from Angola being sent to Jamaica or to Haiti. You got brothers and sisters from Benin being sent to America and Jamaica. You got brothers and sisters from Botswana or South Africa or Ivory Coast or Ghana being sent to any of those places. See how murky the water is? And it gets even murkier when you start thinking slave traders or people who were selling their slaves in the South. So you may have been sent to one part of America, but then got sold somewhere else. and forcibly bred with somebody else who may have been from a different tribe. So even still, you don't know. The elder here can track. All he knows is that they've been in Georgia. His grandmother said, "Well, we've been in Georgia, right?" As far as they can remember, for all they know, somebody shipped in, shipped out. Don't know. You don't know, right? So it's using prophecy and understanding the trade routes that we can nail down which lands belong to who. Does that make sense to everybody in here? So let's get into it. Let's examine the history of Judah in Africa. Let's get Travels of Interior Africa by Mungo Park.
From Wallet to Timbuktu was 11 days more, but water was more plentiful, and the journey was usually performed upon bullocks. He said, there are many Jews at Timbuktu, but they all spoke Arabic and used the same prayers as the Moors.
Now let's make this clear. Mungo Park is a Scottish explorer of the African continent. And this record, which he wrote, Travels of Interior Africa, was written in the early 19th century, the early 1800s, right? He records that Jews were in the city of Timbuktu. Where is Timbuktu? In Mali, right? So he says that there's Jews in Timbuktu, right? Go ahead and read.
Oh, that's one.
We're going to jump over from page, that was page 86. We're going to jump over to page 192.
Okay. I discovered that the Negroes are in possession, among others, of an Arabic version of the Pentateuch of Moses.
They had Mosaic records. Read.
Which they call
Toreta La Musa.
Okay. This was so highly esteemed that it was often sold for the value of one prime slave.
Read.
They have likewise a version of the Psalms of David. And lastly, the book of Isaiah, which they call Lingili La Isa, something like that. And it is in very high esteem. I suspect indeed that all these copies that are interpolations of some peculiar tenets. Of Muhammad.
Now, keep in mind, going back to page 86. It says that there were many Jews at Timbuktu, but they all spoke Arabic and used the same prayers as the Moors. So many would say, well, these Jews or these black people are speaking Arabic and use prayers of the Moors. They're Muslim. See, in earlier history, when we examine the kings of Mali, because go ahead and pull up the map. We're going to pull up the map really quick. I'm going to show you something. Now, when you look at Mali, Mali is bordered by Algeria and Mauritania. When you look at Nigeria, it's bordered by Niger, Chad, and Libya. That means, and when you look at Senegal, they are directly bordered by Arab or Muslim countries. Remember, in the Arabs' first conquest of the continent of Africa, they converted those who they came across, right? So there was a conversion of the kings of Mali or the kings of Timbuktu hundreds of years prior. So these people were Muslim. I want to make something clear. Moors are not Israelites. A lot of people are going to get offended by that. Black Moors are black people that practice Islam in Africa. That's a Moor. Or in Europe, right? Moors were not originally black people. Moors were Berbers who converted to Islam, to the Muslim faith. So Moors were not originally black people. So people who believe in the Moorish doctrine are no different than an Egyptologist. You're connecting your ethnicity to someone that isn't even you.
Wow.
No, Moors were not originally Negroes. Right? And they used the same prayers as the Moors. These Jewish or Israelite people in Timbuktu were converted to Islam or to the Muslim faith. Go ahead and continue reading.
There are interpolations of some of the peculiar tenets of Muhammad, for I could distinguish in many passages of the name of the prophet. It is possible, however, that the circumstance might otherwise have been accounted for if my knowledge of Arabic had been more extensive. By means of those books, many of the converted Negroes have acquired an acquaintance with some of the remarkable events recorded in the Old Testament.
So prior to their conversion to the Muslim faith, they already had these records. Read.
The account of our first parents, the death of Abel, the deluge, the lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the story of Joseph and his brethren, the history of Moses, David, Solomon, etc.
They had full knowledge of the stories that were contained in the Old Testament. These people that were found in Timbuktu and Mali. But this is what I want you to focus on. Read.
All of these have been related to me in the Mandingo language.
The Mandingo language. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Read.
With tolerable exactness by different people. And my surprise was not greater on hearing these accounts from the lips of the Negroes and theirs, on finding that I was already acquainted with them.
So he found these Negroes, these Jews in Timbuktu with all of these records, an exact history of the Israelite Old Testament. And it was relayed to them in the Mandingo language. Why is this important? Mandingo, now I want to make this clear. Later on page 192-93, the Jews that were in Timbuktu were identified as Mandingos, right? Mandingo is a mispronunciation of the word Mandinka. It's the misinterpretation of the word Mandinka. So these Jews were identified as the Mandinka tribe in Mali or in Timbuktu. Mali's kings, the most well-known being Mansa Musa, were converted to Islam by the Berber and Arabic tribes, the Moors. They were converted. These black people, the black Jews of Timbuktu, were converted to the Muslim faith by Berbers and Arabs, also known as the Moors, who bordered them just to the north. Now, this is where it gets interesting. How many of you know the story of Mansa Musa? Mansa Musa is believed to be the wealthiest man to have ever lived. Right? He's known to have been the wealthiest man who ever lived. His estimated net worth was at over $400 billion. Right? Now, he was a Muslim. He was a Muslim king, right? Does anybody know about his conquest or his journey to Mecca? The most famous and most expensive journey ever recorded. He was the one who put Africa's riches on the map. He made sub-Saharan Africa a target. See, he was already a Muslim practicing Islam. But what Mansa Musa wanted was to put his country on the map. He wanted to be forever cemented in history. He wanted his nation in Timbuktu to be cemented in history. So what did he do? He made a journey from Timbuktu to Mecca. And in that time, he spent so much money everywhere that he stopped, leaving a trail all the way to Mecca, where he spent a ton of money to the point to where he had spent all of his money for the journey and had to get a loan from Egyptians before he got back, and he paid them back with what he had there. Now, what do you think is the problem with that? Can anybody tell me where the issue would come in with that? The question that would come from the Arabs is, where did you get all this gold from? Where did you get all of these valuable resources from? That was the beginning of the end for sub-Saharan Africa.
I'll put this comment up.
Yeah. This is from Bishop Michael, the church in Sierra Leone. It says, Bishop, we have Mandingo here in Sierra Leone too. Yes. The Crew people as well, from the tribe of Benjamin, right? Sierra Leone, according to the map that we put up, is a Judite land. It's primarily Judite. They have tribes of Levi and Benjamin in there, but the majority of the land itself is from the tribe of Judah. It says the Moors. What about the Moors that ruled at Europe? The Moors that ruled at Europe were a mixture of both. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that conquest a little bit later, because what we find is the Jews who had been converted to Muslim to the Muslim faith had been made servants. They were made slaves, right? And they offered them freedom for service in the military. And because they offered them freedom for service in the military, they were now partnered with not only the Arabs, but even some Europeans who were considered to be Moors within that army. We're going to get into that history a little bit later, because that goes back to Judah's hand being in the neck of his enemies. So we're going to get into that, the Moors, the Moors in Europe in a minute. But going back to where we started, right? So the Mandingo is a mispronunciation of Mandinka, which is often when people said Mandingo in the time of slavery in the South, it meant they were referring to a strong black male, not to a tribe in particular, but they would call, it's almost like I can't get a good example for it. But if you see a strong black male, they say, yeah, that's a Mandingo. It may not be from the Mandinka tribe, but it's a strong black male. So yeah, that's a Mandingo. We got a good Mandingo right here. It was used to refer to as a strong black male, a strong black male slave in North or South America. It was common to be referred to the men with the physique of men like Mali, Guinea, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau, right? So starting now with the Mandinka tribe of Timbuktu, routes through slave trades and the knowledge of Yorubaland that we can now, and the related, as well as the related tribal history, we can nail down the difference between Judah and Benjamite lands in Africa. I'm going to say that again. It is using the slave routes, our knowledge of the Mandinka tribe in Mali, in Timbuktu, our knowledge of Yorubaland, which we studied in our last lesson on Levi, and tribal history, that we can sort of figure out the difference between Benjamin and Judah in the land of Africa, right? Now, some would ask, how do we know that the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, didn't go to North and South America and not Judah? The answer is simple. Let's get an account of Timbuktu by Hausa. It says territory in the interior of Africa by El Hajj Absalem Shabini and James Gray Jackson. This book was originally written in Arabic and translated by James Gray Jackson. Read.
This place is reported to be inhabited by one of the lost tribes of Israel, possibly an immigration from the tribe of Judah. Yehuda in African Arabic signifies Judah. Yehudi signifies Jew. It is not impossible that many of the lost tribes of Israel may be found dispersed in the interior regions of Africa.
While in Timbuktu, they found that the people, the Mandinka tribe, were from the tribe of Judah. Right? So the Mandinka weren't Benjamites. They were Judites. Right? Now I want to make clear, when we're looking at this map, you had tribes of Judah scattered in other places. For example, directly to the right, or on the interior of Yoruba land, you had a land called Widda. Widda, also known as Judah, Juda. That's because when we look into the history, when we continue to go into this history, you're going to see later that Judah was also had tribes in Yoruba land, just like Benjamin had tribes in Yoruba land. How many of you know that the Igbo aren't from the tribe of Judah? The Igbo. The Igbo are Benjamites. The general thought is that they're from the tribe of Judah or the tribe of Levi. And what's promoted is that a large amount. See, this is what they do. They say a large amount of the Igbo tribe went during the transatlantic slave trade, right? Which is true. But the problem is that we are educated properly concerning the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade was not taking Africans or Israelites from West Africa directly to the United States. There were alternate trade routes. You had some slaves going to South America. You had some slaves going to the West Indies. You had some slaves going to Haiti, and you had some slaves going to the United States. The Igbo, although they accounted for a large amount of slaves that were taken in the slave trade, they were taken. Majority of all of them were sent to Jamaica. Nearly all of the slaves that were sent to Jamaica were Igbo. But we're going to get into that when we go into Benjamin, right? We're going to get into that more when we get into Benjamin, right? Now, it says that the African Arabic, the Yehuda, signifies Judah, and Yehudi signifies Jew. They were saying that the people from the Mandinka tribe were from the tribe of Judah. Right? Now, another thing we must establish is that the Bantu tribes in South and East Africa and are scattered throughout West Africa are primarily from the tribe of Benjamin. Right? The Bantu are primarily, it's one of the largest ethnic groups in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. It's primarily Benjamin, right? And this includes the Igbo tribe, right? Who primarily was sent to Jamaica and the West Indies, right? This also includes Ivory Coast and the Ashanti. Another general thought amongst those who study the 12 tribes of Israel is that the Ashanti are either from the tribe of Judah or Levi. Once again, incorrect. Majority of the Ashanti in Ghana, which is the majority population in Ghana, is Benjamite. Right? Ashan, people of the smoke. We're going to get into that also in a lesson of Benjamin, right? So now that we know that and we have an idea of that, we can continue to break down where Judah is. Let's get history.com, an article entitled, "What part of Africa did most enslaved people come from?"
Of those Africans who arrived in the United States, nearly half came from two regions.
Now, we're going to pull up the map before we read off these regions. Let's pull up the map really quickly. Right? Keep in mind, brown is Hamite and Berber, red is Benjamite, blue is Judah, and green is Levi. Right? Go ahead and read other.
Of those Africans who arrived in the United States, nearly half came from 2 regions.
This is specific to the United States. Read.
Senegambia.
Senegambia. Read.
The area comprising of Senegal and Gambia rivers and the land between them.
All right. So when you look at the map that I have drawn, you have Senegal, which is directly under Mauritania. You have and you have all the way down to Liberia to the small parts of Ivory Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
Or today's Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau,
Guinea-Bissau,
and Mali, and West Central Africa, including what is now Angola, Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Gabon.
And Gabon, right? So when you look at the map that I have drawn, you see that the blue is comprised of these particular areas, right? That's because these are the ones who are primarily sent to the United States, right? Let's continue reading.
Still need the image?
Yes.
Okay. In addition to the nearly 50% of the total number of enslaved Africans in the United States from these 2 regions, a considerable number of enslaved people had their origins in the West African nation of Ghana, as well as the neighboring parts of the westward coast, now Ivory Coast.
Now Ivory Coast. Read.
Others originated in
Bight of Biafra,
including parts of present-day eastern Nigeria and Cameroon, an inlet of the Atlantic and Africa's western coast that was the hub of extensive slave dealing operations.
So the statistics are specific to the transatlantic slave routes to the United States, right? So we look at the majority of the areas that they were shipped. The majority of the people who were shipped to the United States were from the tribe of Judah, right? We're going to break that down in prophecy in a moment. However, when we look at Ivory Coast, which is majority Benjamite land, right? And Bight of Benin, which is majority Levite, we see that trace amounts of Benjamin and Judah also went to the United States, right? Less than 13% of all slaves that were sent to the United States were Igbo. What does that mean? It matches what we find according to the history, right? That small amounts of people from the Bight of Biafra or Ghana, as well as Nigeria, were taken to the United States. Less than 13% of all the slaves that went to the United States, just the United States, were from the Igbo tribe. Not to mention, majority of them killed themselves on the way. The Igbo tribe refused to go into slavery. A lot of them chose to die, right? And even some of the Fon people, the Fon tribe, who were Levites in Benin and Togo, went to Jamaica in the trade. This means that the water becomes extremely murky even when dealing with the Negro tribes of Israel. So you see a little bit of everybody everywhere. It wasn't perfect. They didn't go and say, "Hey, only grab the tribes from Judah and take them to North America." Make sure you only grab the tribe of Judah when we taking them to the United States. Make sure you only grab the tribe of Benjamin where we're taking them to Jamaica and Trinidad and Antigua. Make sure you only grab Levi when we taking them into Haiti and Trinidad and Aruba. We got to be real specific with this thing. Nah, they were taking people. Right? But how we know that it was divine intervention by the Most High is because majority of one went to each place. The vast majority of those who went to Haiti were from the Levite areas in Africa. The majority of the brothers and sisters that went to North and South America were from the Judite parts of Africa, and the majority of those who went to Jamaica and the West Indies and to the UK were from the tribe of Benjamin. That's how we know it's divine intervention. Because the prophecies line up. Right? Let's get some statistics. I have these written down. 45% of slaves in the Carolinas and Georgia came from Angola, Congo. Right? 45%. Right? Now this is from the pickup to the port to the country. Right? 45% of those slaves on a slave ship were from Angola, from a slave ship that arrived in the Carolinas, North and South Carolina, and Georgia, were from Angola and Congo. Right? That means that if you have a family that was taken to the Carolinas or Georgia, they're most likely, almost half, almost 50% sure they're from Angola or Congo, from the tribe of Judah. Right? But remember what I stated. You had slaves that arrived at a port in North and South Carolina and Georgia and might have been sold somewhere else. Right? What we find is the Mbundu tribe of Angola was the number one tribe sold into North and South America. Number one. Right? But the majority of the Mbundu tribe was sent to Brazil. Remember what we went over earlier? We were talking about when we spoke about, when I asked the question, where is the majority of the tribes of Judah located, excluding Africa? And usually the thought is, it's between the UK, it's between the UK and the United States. The majority of slaves from the Judite lands in Africa were taken to South America. There are more of us in South America than there is here in North America. So tell me, why are there no ministries in Brazil? Why is the truth not being taken to Brazil? We've seen missions there, but no one has taken the initiative to set up in Brazil. It's because those who don't believe in the 12 tribes chart don't believe that those are our people. You ignore the history that shows that there are more of you in Brazil than here in the US. That should mean that the mission in Brazil is far more important. You got 91 million people in Brazil from the tribe of Judah waiting to be woken up. But to receive full context of where Judah went, of where Judah is, we have to go even earlier. Right? So that means we're reaching far before the transatlantic slave trade. The Critical Review and Annals of Literature, volume 57. We went into this last week and maybe the week before that. I'm not sure if we went into the week, the part before that, but we definitely went into this last week. Let's get the Annals of Literature, volume 57, page 193.
A complete history of the Negro slave trade. It is generally imagined that the Europeans were the first who taught the Negroes this cruel branch of trade.
Right? That's what we thought. Read.
But the poor Negroes had already tasted the hardest slavery long before the arrival of the Portuguese on their coast.
So that means there were vicious slave trades prior to the arrival of Europeans. Who were they? Read.
All Negroes were born slaves of their masters, by whom they were doomed to death or sale, not only by trifling offense, but for mere ill humor.
Because they thought it was funny. Read.
And often to sell, merely to gratify their master's thirst for brandy.
They sold them for drinks. Sound familiar? Doesn't the scripture say they shall sell a boy and they shall sell your sons for wine? Deuteronomy 28, right? The curses. Read.
As far as their history can be traced, the northern neighbors of the Negroes, the Arabs in Morocco, were the first who purchased slaves of the Negroes.
Mansa Musa's move came back to bite him. Because Mansa Musa was prideful and wanted to be remembered, he opened up Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, his people, to the attacks of people he thought he could trust. Think about it. Mansa Musa is a Muslim. The Arabs are Muslims. So he would think we can have some brotherly love. We can have peace. No, the Arabs said, what you got but that gold, though? But them rubies, though. But them diamonds, though. But all that silver, though. And because he decided to flamboyantly show all of the resources that he gained from conquering parts of Africa, it came back to bite us later. The Arabs said, you know what? I never knew. I never knew there was so much in Africa. There was so much gold and resources and riches in Africa. I had no idea. Thank you, Mansa Musa, for wanting to cement your place in history and showing your hand. So those Arabs said, not only can we get slave labor from these powerful black men, but we can also get the resources too. And you know what? They're right next door. Go ahead and pull up the map. They said they are right next door. Look at that. Mali. Timbuktu is in Mali. Just to the north, you got Morocco. You got all of these Arab nations, all of these Berber nations. They're like, what? We were just north of all of these riches the whole time? I never knew. Thank you, Mansa Musa. See, in that same attitude that Mansa Musa had when he exposed sub-Saharan Africa is the same spirit that Judah had when he was boasting against Joseph. Same spirit. Judah said, look at my strength. I'm stronger than both of them. Imagine what I could do to you. We didn't read it. We skipped over the part where Joseph said, you coming to me talking about all your strength, boasting to me about all of your strength. That was the character of Judah. It's part of who he is. It's part of what he does. And it was that spirit that was within Judah that destroyed us, that got us destroyed by the Arabs. Because guess what? Mansa Musa thought he could trust the enemy. He thought he could trust the enemy. The Arabs paraded themselves saying, yeah, we're friends. We're both Muslim. Yeah, come to Mecca. Yeah. And as soon as Mansa Musa left Mecca, guess what they were talking about? Hey, we got to figure out a way to get down there and get all that gold. It had to, because he hasn't been up here before. He didn't get it from anywhere but where he's at. He exposed us because of his pride. He wanted to be remembered. Not longevity, not to sustain his power, but to be gratified in the moment he sacrificed the future of his people. Now, granted, they would have found out anyways. They most likely would have found out anyways. But at least it wouldn't have been his fault. Nobody knew what was in West Africa, what was in Sub-Saharan Africa until we went down. We were the only ones who dared go there. There's a reason why the majority of the Berbers weren't there until we got there. What other people can survive in the desert? What other people can survive in the jungles of the Congo? Nobody trying to go down there, but we did. And not only did we do it, we thrived. How many powerful sub-Saharan African nations have we built throughout history? Timbuktu ain't the only one. We got empires in Ghana that were built. We have empires in Nigeria that were built. We have empires in Liberia that were built. Empires in Angola and Gabon that were built. And we found the resources because we were the only ones who dared go there. Right there, you see the spirit of Judah within our people. Yep. And it got us destroyed. Similar to what happened to Judah. He saw his brothers jump on the wall. There was an extremely high wall, and he saw Gad jump up on there. Mm-hmm. And he saw Levi jump up there. I don't remember what the second. It was either Gad or Dan. It was either Dan or one of his other brothers. They jumped up on the wall, and Judah said, "I can do it too." And his brother warned him. He said, "No, no, you can't. Don't try it. Just climb up like everybody else. Just climb." And Judah said, "No, I can make it." So he ran back to get a head start and ran and went to go jump, and he didn't make it. It was Naphtali who had to grab him and save him. Because he thought, "Oh yeah, I can do it. I'm fine. If they can do it, surely I can do it." Nearly got him killed. I can't. If you read through the book of Joshua, you'll see how many times Naphtali saved the life of one of our forefathers. Naphtali was always in the right place at the right time when it came to his brothers. But you see that spirit of Judah. Judah said, "I can make the jump." Gad did it. I'm stronger and I'm faster than Gad. I can make the jump. I almost killed him. Let's get page 140.
Page 140. The first rivals of the Arabs for the slave trade were the Portuguese. Uh-huh. Since 1445, the kidnapping pursuits of the Portuguese were favored by the papal donation of the new discovered countries.
Does anybody know who the papal is? The Pope. Rome funded the Portuguese slave trades. How come Rome keeps popping up in all of this? Once again, Rome rears its ugly head. It says kidnapping pursuits of the Portuguese were favored by the papal donation, by the Pope, and their money. It's like, well, listen, this is what we're paying you for. Right? The first rivals of the Arabs were the Portuguese. The Portuguese were a Catholic nation. Therefore, they were subservient to the Pope. Let's get the next quote.
The first period is the time of its increase, during which not only its founders, the Portuguese, but the English, the Dutch, the French dealt in Negro slaves, though chiefly for the use and consumption of the Spaniards and the sugar and tobacco plantations in the Brazil.
And where?
The Brazil.
And where?
The Brazil.
And where?
The Brazil.
There was more of a demand for slaves in Brazil than there was in the United States at the time. So not only did the slave trades from West Africa, were they more popular to be sent to the Brazils at that time, it was also longer. Brother Ashok, can you get the big book? You had it in your hand. It's the big book. It's the Critical Annals. The Negroes in the slave markets began with the Arabs who were directly to the north of Judite lands, right? So it started with the Arabs who were led there by Mansa Musa. That's correct, right? The Pope and his government were pleased with the kidnapping of the Negroes in Africa, right? He was happy with it. Say, look at all this, look at all these resources we're getting from these very, very useful slaves. Why? Because they had already pretty much decimated the population of the Brazilians in South America. They had already pretty much destroyed them by that point, right? Check this out. Gonzalez, this is remember I showed you I was going to show you the Jews in Spain, right? Because remember what Paul said. Paul said, I am a Jew from Tarshish in Sicilia, right? Check this out. Now I'm going to read the first paragraph on page 141. It says Gonzalez was the first Portuguese who in 1442 returned with Negro slaves purchased instead of the Africans. Y'all heard that? Did anybody catch that? It says Gonzalez was the first Portuguese who in 1442 returned with Negro slaves purchased instead of the Africans. It makes a distinction between the two. This is secular history. This is what your textbooks in school are based off of. And it's literally telling you there is a difference between Negroes and Africans. It says who had till then been carried off by mere violence, right? Remember, the Berbers were conquered by the Arabs first, right? But soon after, the Portuguese became better acquainted with the African regions. Portuguese became more acquainted with the African regions and their valuable productions. So now, after coming in and exploring the lands, they know where certain minerals are. They know where certain food grows. They know where certain people are. Prince Henry founded the first Guinea Company and settled factories in a fortress in Arguin, and an exclusive privilege of trading, and had the exclusive privilege of trading with the Arabs. So we're seeing a partnership between Esau and Ishmael, the Europeans and the Arabs, to conquer the Negro.
Wow.
Y'all thought we were playing.
Wow.
Y'all thought David was playing when he wrote in the Psalms and he said, lo, thy enemies make a tumult.
Come on.
The children of Esau and Ishmael. They conspired together against thy hidden ones.
Come on.
Two of those nations, the first two nations that David mentioned in the book of Psalms was Esau and Ishmael. And who are we seeing here? I told y'all I was going to be deep today. I told you it was going to be deep today.
Fine.
It says the trade was soon increased so that in 1455, no less than 700 or 800 Negro slaves were annually exported to Lisbon. Lisbon is where? In Portugal, Spain. That's 700 or 800 annually. That's yearly. Yearly or monthly. Either way, it's a repeated transaction. Right? Now, to make it clear, it says the Portuguese endeavored to exclude other nations from Guinea. So they were trying to keep everybody out. Now, when you look at the map that I posted, there's a reason why a sliver of Ivory Coast is blue. That's because in the westernmost parts of Ivory Coast, it is Judite land. Right? So that border was where it stopped. That's where they stopped. They said, we don't want anybody coming into this land, taking our slaves, infringing on our profit. I'm not trying to share. right? And when you drop down, it says, but the discovery of the Gold Coast served indeed yet more to enlarge the sphere of the navigation of the Portuguese than their slave trade. But it forced them to also extend themselves on the coast and to settle colonies in Congo, Angola, and other places which they had till then neglected. So then they started taking slaves from Congo and Angola and Gabon, right? Which are also on the map blue. King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas. Now, keep in mind, St. Thomas is in the Western world. It's closer to the Western world, right? And in 1492, this is happening at the same time. This expulsion of the Jews is happening at the same exact time when Christopher Columbus is said to be arriving in the Bahamas. Right? Mm-hmm. Which expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to the other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. Right? So now they're sending these people from their areas in Europe to Africa, right? To these coastal islands, St. Thomas and different islands like that. But check this out. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, and from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called, and the Jews of Loango, are despised even by the very Negroes they are descended. They were taking Jews, Black Jews, from Portugal and sending them to Africa, where the Negroes that they were taking slaves from had issues with them. So they were pitting the Negroes that were in the west coast of Africa and the Jews, that the Negro Jews from Portugal, were going against each other. Right? You see how they know stuff and they just refuse to tell us? Like I said, this is history. This is secular history. This is where your information comes from. This is your source's source. Right? And it makes it clear. It says, and from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called. The Black people in Portugal, the Negroes in Portugal, were Jews, and they knew it. And then when they sent them to the colonies that they had in Africa, they knew that the Negroes in their colonies that they had were the same Negroes as the Jews that they exiled to St. Thomas. So they knew that the Negroes in their colonies were also Jews. Now, when you drop down, check this out. It says these Negroes were purchased. Wait, I actually might have to go up a little bit. It says by these colonists, St. Thomas soon became a considerable place of trade and valuable for sugar plantations. Right? Dropping down. It says these Negroes were purchased in Guinea, Congo, Mini-Congo, and the colonists of the plantation furnished with 150 to 3,000 Negro slaves. All of this being conducted by the Pope. I told you I had some information today. Annals the critical reviewer annals of literature. They knew who they were. They always knew. That's why the Pope was okay with it. Pope said, do it. Yeah. right? And the Arabs were in on it. So when they were saying that Africans were selling other Africans, they were referring to the Berbers and the Arabs that were present in Africa, such as the Fulani tribe. Look like us, sound like us, because keep in mind, they speak the same language because they've assimilated. They look like us, they sound like us, but they're selling us. So they recorded in history, oh, these savages are selling each other to us. The majority of Negro slaves that were being kidnapped in Africa prior to being sent to the United States were first being sent annually to Brazil, which is why there's a larger Negro population or a Judite population in South America than there is in the United States. I told y'all I was going to prove it. There are more of us in Brazil than here. Why is there no mission? Because we're so caught up in these national or color or language divides. Oh, they don't look like us. Oh, they don't sound like us. The same issues that we complain about with the brothers and sisters in Africa. Don't we complain about that? Oh, they don't even like us. They don't even like us in Africa. They hate us in Africa. Well, we hate us in Brazil.
Come on.
We hate us in Africa. How dare we? And it's not like it was any different back then. We read it. The Negroes in Africa hated the Negroes, the Negro Jews from Portugal. Oh, he looks different. Oh, he speaks a different language. Oh, he's from a different country. Can't be me. I'm not one of those people. Don't compare me to them. Judah primarily held lands that are now known as Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, parts of Burkina Faso, Mali, parts of Niger, a large portion of Cameroon, which is shared with Levi. A majority of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, most of Gabon, majority of Angola, parts of Botswana, and parts of Namibia. Right? There are also tribes of Judah scattered throughout parts of Levite and Benjamite lands, like in Ivory Coast, like in Ghana, like in Nigeria, like in South Africa, Burundi, and Rwanda. Right? It's no different. We're scattered throughout Africa the same way that we're scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Right? It is important to note that there are tribes of Levi and Benjamin that were scattered in Judite lands as well. I stated this earlier. Like the Mongala tribe in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Kru of Liberia. Right? I was talking to Bishop Michael. Bishop Michael is from the Philippines. But I had him ask the elder what he knew about the Kru tribe. Because I knew, based off of the prophecies concerning the tribes of Israel, but concerning the tribe of Judah, that they, even though they were in Judite land, they could not be from the tribe of Judah because of the prophecy surrounding them. Turns out the Kru migrated from Benjamite land. They're Bantu. There's one tribe of them in Sierra Leone. There's some of them in Sierra Leone. Just like there's some of them in Liberia, right? They're not from the tribe of Judah, but they're living amongst Judah, right? And the Mongala tribe of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, go ahead and pull up the map one more time, right? So when you look at this map one more time, you see, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, not Congo, right? There's a difference between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Congo. Congo is majority Benjamite. Democratic Republic of the Congo is primarily Judah. And it just so happens that in the far west of the Democratic Republic of the Congo is the Mangala tribe, which is Benjamite, Bantu. Right? And then we also see some of the Yoruba tribes scattered throughout Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon, Judite lands. Not easy. It's not simple. It's not as easy as saying, oh, you're from here? Well, guess what? You're this. It's not that simple. It's not that simple for anybody. It's not that simple for anybody. Right? 20% of slaves that arrived, because remember what we went over, 45% of slaves that arrived in the Carolinas and Georgia were from Angola, Congo, right? 20% were from Senegambia. Remember, Senegambia makes up Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and as well as portions of Mauritania, Mali, and Guinea. Right, so 20% of the slaves that were taken to ports in the Carolinas and Georgia were from Senegambia. Right, 18% of slaves from the Carolinas and Georgia came from Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, and parts of Ivory Coast. When you look at the map, what color is that? Go ahead and put up the map. When you look at the map, what color is Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, and parts of Ivory Coast? It's blue. It's blue. 35% of slaves in Louisiana came from Angola, Congo. Once again, a large majority came from Angola, Congo. Right? That's 35%. 20% from Senegambia. Right? 20% from the Bites of Benin. Now we're seeing a little bit larger of a population of Levites being sent to Louisiana. Notice how there's an inordinate amount of voodoo and witchcraft in Louisiana as opposed to anywhere else in the United States. You think that's by accident? That's because see how the prophecies don't change. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you go. The prophecy stays the same. You have 20% of the population from the Bight of Benin being sent to Louisiana, and Louisiana is the voodoo capital of the United States. Not to mention, when Haitians leave Haiti, they either come to Florida or they go to Louisiana. You're in one of those two places. Look it up. The largest Haitian populations, they either come to Florida or they go to Louisiana. Right? So the prophecies don't change. It doesn't matter where you go. The prophecy remains the same. Right? 18% of slaves in the Carolinas and Salakia. 10% of slaves in Louisiana came from the Bight of Biafra. What is the Bight of Biafra? Nigeria, the eastern coast of Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Right? Now, Virginia and Maryland, which is further north, the slave ports further north in the U.S. 35% of Virginia and Maryland, of slaves that arrived in Virginia and Maryland, came from the Bight of Biafra. So now the majority of slaves that were up north were from eastern coast of Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Right? 17%, which is the first time the Angola Congo is the minority in a certain area. 17% in Maryland and Virginia came from Angola Congo. 16% came from the Gold Coast. What is the Gold Coast? The Gold Coast is Ivory Coast and Ghana. Now we're seeing a presence of Benjamin and Levi up north in the northern slave ports. Right? So 16%, still a minority, came from the Gold Coast, right? 15% came from Senegambia, and 12% came from Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and the Ivory Coast. The vast majority of slaves during the transatlantic slave trade went to North and South America. Right? Mm-hmm. It's really not even close. Because keep in mind, Levi had been already traded hundreds of years prior to a couple, like 100 or 200 years prior to our slave trade to the United States. Mm-hmm. Remember, Christopher Columbus had started having African slaves sent to started having African slaves sent to Haiti in 1501. By 1517, they already had a fully operating slave trade. So Levi majority of Levi had from Yoruba land had already been taken, right? And Benjamin also the slave trades to the West Indies also happened around around the 16th century, right? So Judah was really the last one to go. We're really the last ones to go. When you're starting to look at overseas, because keep in mind, we were being traded inside of Africa. There was still the sub-Saharan slave trade, right? Where we were being sent to the Middle East and to Europe and different things like that. There were still slave trades within Africa that happened with the tribe of Judah. But we, in large number, left in the transatlantic slave trade, primarily to South America. Genesis 49 says that Judah's hand will be in the neck of his enemies, meaning that he would play a huge role in the rise of many other nations and empires that we have witnessed, as we have witnessed here in the United States. Nobody can debate with me. Would the United States be the United States without our slave labor?
Nope.
So I don't want to hear none of that. Our hand in building this country is evident. Every time you see the White House, every time you see Joe Biden, Mr. Sleepy Joe in front of giving a speech at the White House, know that we built that. So our hand is evident, right? If it was actually our hand that freed the slaves. Keep in mind, we were the ones fighting the Civil War. So the modern state of the United States is also us. Not to mention, it's still our slave labor that's keeping this country running. Majority of the working class, of the foundation of the working class is us. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of brothers that they locked up for unfair sentences that are serving free, that are giving up free labor. Yeah. Yeah. Many don't remember the Black Guard. How many know who the Black Guard is? The Black Guard of Morocco. They assisted in building one of the most powerful Arabic dynasties of its time. Let's get Wikipedia. Cambridge University Press, Black Morocco, a history of slavery, race, and Islam by Shouki El Hamel. Go ahead and read that.
Black Guard descended from black captives brought to Morocco from West Africa.
From where?
West Africa.
They were brought to Morocco from West Africa. Read.
Who were settled with their families in special colonies
Mm-hmm.
at Makra El Ramel
Mm-hmm.
to have children and to work as indentured servants.
Wow.
So we're seeing slavery, right? But check out what happens. Read.
At age 10, they were trained certain skills. The girls in domestic life or entertainments, and the boys as in masonry, archery, horsemanship, and musketry.
How many of you guys know that the greatest army of archers were black people? We literally had in the Arabic army, we literally had a whole set of just archers, and we were revered as the best archers on the planet. And what just as a reminder, what did Jacob tell Judah to do? Teach him the bow.
He said, teach them the bow and all other weapons.
Mhm.
So it would stand to reason that we'll make up the greatest army of archers the world has ever seen.
Yep.
I'm talking snipers. We were hitting people from distances that you don't even know.
Mhm.
Like I'm serious, you know, the tall bows, the ground bows. We invented those. Those were like a regular bow and arrow is like, you know, back then you could consider it like a pistol or a machine gun or something like that, right? The tall bows, I always forget the name of them. The really tall bows that rest on the ground. Those were like your snipers. You get longer distances. What? Yeah. The ballistic, right? Those you can hit people from longer distances from further away. We invented those. Read.
At age 15, those that were chosen entered the army.
Those that were chosen into the army. Read.
They will marry and have children and continue the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Considered more loyal than Arabs or Berbers because of their lack of tribal affiliation.
Check that out. They didn't have any political standings with any particular person. Right? Why? Because they were promised freedom. They said, if you join the army and you serve your time, you will be free. We'll free you. So black folks ain't care about nothing. It's like, listen, I don't care what you gonna have me do. I don't care what politics is involved. All I know is if I serve in this army and I do what I'm supposed to do, my family will be free. That's what made us more loyal than Arabs and Berbers. We didn't have a conscience of what was happening in Arabic nations. We did not care. It's like, what politics in an Arab country got to do with me? All I know is I'm a slave. I don't have rights. So what I care about what rights y'all do or don't have, or what Arab is being persecuted, or what Berber is being persecuted. I'm not Arab. I'm not Berber. and we have the same attitude today as workers. Right? It's like they're like, yeah, such and such, yeah, the Chick-fil-A and the LGBTQ community. You're like, so I'm not gay. All I know is I'm getting paid. I'm getting that paycheck at the end of this 2 weeks. That's what I know. I'm not gay, so that don't have nothing to do with me. It's the same thing that you're seeing here. It's like, listen, we don't have rights. I'm not Arabic. I'm not a Berber. So whatever's going on politically, I don't care. All I know is that if I serve in this army, my family is free. So what you need me to do? Oh, you need me to go and take care of these people over here? Bet. You need me to go and kill these people over here? Cool. I'll make it happen. That's why they were loyal. Read.
Ismail's black soldiers formed the bulk of his standing army and numbered 150,000 at their peak.
He had the most powerful army, one of the most powerful armies in Arabic history. This is where it goes back to the Moors. The army that was already established by the Arabs had already consisted of Moors, right? And when black Muslims had assimilated themselves into the Muslim army, they were also considered Moors. The chief armies of the king or of the rulers in these Arabic nations, the generals were black. The leaders of these armies were black. For example, in this army, there you see some particular. There was in Spain. There in the I always forget the era, but there was an era of Muslim power in Spain. During that time, the king, the king or the ruler of Spain at that time, the Muslim ruler of Spain at that time, he had a personal guard, but his bodyguards, his personal army were all black. But they were referred to as Moors because they were a part of the Moorish army. They were not Berbers. They were not Arabs. They were black men. They were black Israelites from the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, or Levi that had been inserted into the Moorish army. So all these brothers running around here calling themselves Moors, I mean, do you, but even Arabs will tell you, like, nah, you're not a Moor. Maybe Muslim, but Moorish, you're a Moorish slave. Notice Moorish, Jewish. Y'all don't see that? They call us Moorish slaves. You're kind of a Moor, but not really. You're almost a Moor, but not really. So these brothers around here calling themselves Moor. No, you're Moor-ish. You have the religion of the Moor, but you don't have the ethnicity or the race of a Moor. Same thing as with a Jew-ish person. You have an semblance of the religion of the Jews, but you don't have the ethnicity of the Jews. So you're sort of, kind of are, but you're not-ish. Check this out. Remember those bodyguards I told you about? Go ahead and read that, Elder. The water.
Muley Ismail always went about his court surrounded by a bodyguard of 80 black soldiers.
He had his own personal, he basically had his own Navy SEALs guarding him, his own SWAT team. Consisted of black soldiers. Read.
With muskets and scimitars at the ready in case of any attempt on the Sultan's life. At his throne, Ismail was attended by a servant charged with twirling a parasol above the Sultan at all times. A legend says that at least one occasion, Ismail pulled out a sword and murdered an attendant who had allowed the sun to briefly fall upon his skin.
An elite army that helped not only bring this Arabic empire into power for an era, but also sustained and maintained it in power. And it remained in power until slavery was abolished. Right? Arabs would enslave black men and tell them that if they served in the Sultan's army, that they and their family would be freed from slavery. That kept black soldiers loyal over Hamite Berbers and Arabs. It was the black guard that not only helped the Alawite dynasty consolidate and remain in, but also remain in power for centuries. Black men from the tribe of Judah also assisted in conquering the New World under the name of Black conquistadors. How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all knew that it was black men who helped to conquer the New World? Which also shows that we didn't see the people over here in the Western world as us. We viewed them as different. National Park Service, American explorers from Spanish America. African explorers from Spanish America.
16th century conquistadors of African and Afro-Hispanic American descent, hereafter referred to as Black conquistadors, were as much a part of the exploration of the Americas as their Spanish counterparts. Many people of African descent used military service as a means to emancipation and inclusion into the Spanish society.
Check that out. They used the same formula. The Spaniards used the same formula. They said, we'll free you from slavery if you assist us in conquering the New World. Once again, why do you think they needed us on board with that? So a Gentile is going to conquer an Israelite? You need an Israelite to conquer an Israelite. They ain't strong enough to do it by themselves. They say, you know what? We need to recruit some of them to help us conquer them. It's like trying to, listen, I can't, I can't, what am I doing? What am I going to do? You need to fight with something. It's like trying to fight a dude with a sword with a balloon animal. Like, yeah, I need to go and get me a sword. So they went and got the slaves that they already had and said, hey, we'll free you and give you inclusion into Spaniard society, and we'll give you land in the New World if you help us. So guess what? Guess what our people said? They said, shoot, sound good. You hold up. All I got to do is do this. I get land. My family's free, and I don't got to worry about nothing. Sign me up. Who I got to take out? Read.
As the numbers of expeditions increased and the people within Spanish America began to settle, the need to secure the land and the riches associated with it grew as well. Black conquistadors figured predominantly in the securing of these lands.
So it was the Spaniards that got them there. It was the Black conquistadors that did all the work. That went in and did the dirty work. Right? This is another part of the same article, Black conquistadors, armed Africans in early Spanish America. Read.
The broader cultural context to the Spanish use of Black fighters in the conquest and subsequent accounts of their roles in the Spanish perception of Africans as natural warriors.
So they said, they said our conquest. The reason why we got Black fighters in the conquest of the New World is because they viewed Africans as natural warriors. Said, look at him. He's built to fight. The same way when you watch the old movies and you see a white person who see like The Blind Side.
Yeah.
She's like, look, he's so big.
Mm-hmm.
Look at those calves. Look at those broad shoulders.
Come on.
Those powerful biceps. He's built to play football.
Yeah.
He's 6'5". Look at those shoulders. Look at the size of his. He's built to play basketball. They were viewing Blacks the same way back then. Look at those shoulders. Look at the broadness of his shoulders and the thickness of his neck and his leaping. He's a natural fighter. He's a natural warrior. Read.
This perception is deeply rooted in Iberian and African history,
Going
back to the role played by Black slaves in the Muslim armies.
in what armies?
Muslim armies.
In what armies?
Muslim armies.
In what armies?
Muslim armies.
Read.
Of North Africa.
In where?
North Africa.
Where?
North Africa.
Read.
And the Middle East.
Where?
The Middle East.
Where?
The Middle East.
The Middle East. So they had seen success from previous people who had possession of us. So they said, you know what? The Muslims used them and it worked. The Muslims of North Africa used them. The Berbers, the Hamites used them and it worked. And it worked in the Middle East. I think I have an idea. And that goes to show that there's Judah, Benjamin, and Levite present still in the Middle East. Why do you think we don't recognize them? When you read the 13th tribe, there were Jews who were referring to, there were Jews in modern times who were referring to the Black kids there as nigger. There's a presence of us over there too, which goes to show it's hard to recognize the difference. Why? Because appearances are different over time. Appearances are different over time, right? It says that going back to the role played by Black slaves and Muslim armies, they studied our history. They studied us. They didn't fall upon us by accident. They studied us. They said, look at these people's history, going all the way back to their homeland in Israel. Read.
I'm going to go back a little bit. Going back to the role played by black slaves in the Muslim armies of North Africa and the Middle East during the medieval phase of the trade of sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh, the trade of who?
Sub-Saharan Africa.
Who?
Sub-Saharan Africa.
Nah, North Africans.
Sub-Saharan Africa.
It was the sub-Saharan slave trade, which we're going to get into when we go into Benjamin, where sub-Saharan Africans, including all the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, were sent to Asia. We were sent to Europe. We were sent to the Middle East. We were sent to the Muslim world, and we were sent to Asia. A lot of Benjamites were sent to India. A lot of Benjamites were sent to India. A lot of Benjamites were sent to Southeast Asia too. But we can't recognize them, can we? Why? I wonder why. But all the tribes are Negro. So those Benjamites who you claim, you get it. Read.
And the black experience of the Reconquista as armed auxiliaries on both sides of the conflict.
On both sides of the conflict. The black experience of the Reconquista is as armed auxiliaries. What does that mean? The reconquering of Spain. Remember when I told you about the Muslim armies? How the Moors, which Bishop Michael brought up a little bit earlier. Bishop Michael brought up, he said, what about the Moors that ruled Europe? These were the Moors that ruled Europe. That's why I said that there were Moors there were blacks on both sides of the conflict, because there were blacks who were fighting to keep the Moorish Empire standing, and there were blacks on the Spanish side who were trying to reconquer Spain. They really do know how to use our people, don't they? It takes study. It takes time to figure this stuff out. How many of you guys know that they have that Esau has all of our records? According to the book of Josephus, they confiscated over 10,000 of our records. We only have 66 in the regular King James Version Bible, not including the Apocrypha, Enoch, Jasher, and Jubilees. It would have been more if they hadn't shut down Martin Luther. Martin Luther wanted to take out 1st and 2nd Peter. He wanted to take out Jude. He wanted to take out one of the books of John. he wanted to get rid of everything. It would have been more a part of the New Testament Apocrypha. Right? They studied our records. They say, you know what? Please bring us our record. Bring us your records so we can translate them so that we can learn how to better serve your God. Is what they said. That's what Esau said. They said, we want to serve your God, but in order to serve your God, we need your records. So we need to translate your records into Greek so we can better serve your God. No, they were studying us. His enemies. How many empires have we built? I didn't even talk about Greece, Rome, and the United States. I didn't even talk about those. Because keep in mind, majority of the enforcers for the Roman government were black people, even during the time of Christ. Majority of the Roman army in the time of Christ was black. They had a lot of black people in the Roman army. Esau is not numerous in number. They are very small. The scriptures say that he's made Esau small amongst the nations. Why do you think they recruit us? Not only are we numerous, but according to black conquistadors, armed Africans in early Spanish America, we're natural warriors. Mm-hmm. Why not? Why not? See, our people throughout our history, specifically the tribes of Judah, you see how murky the water gets. That is precisely my issue with people who deny based on appearance or lack of history. Because the same people who claim that the tribe of Judah is only black are the same people who neglect that majority of us are in Brazil. The same people. The same people. Right? There's a lot of us still in the Middle East that don't look like us. They don't look like us. There's still Israelites in Goshen to this day in Egypt. There's still Israelites there. We're not completely gone out of that area. There are those of us who stayed. Right? It's not as easy as just looking and saying, oh, you know, yeah, that's an Israelite. That's, yo, look at that nappy hair. Yeah, that's an Israelite.
That's true.
Nah. The elder will tell you, how long did it take me to really get this figured out? I've been trying to figure this out for weeks.
Yeah.
Literally going down every tribe in each country in Africa. Think about that. Think about how many countries there are, how many ethnic groups, and how many tribes there are within Africa. I looked at every one to nail this down. Not only did I look at everyone, I went through their history too. To look and figure out whether or not they match the prophecies concerning the tribe of Judah. The Most High revealed that to me. And it was all and it was all completely, it came out of nowhere. The elder remembers the night before Sabbath, I came downstairs at like 3 o'clock, 4 in the morning, and I said, look.
That was when I was down here.
Yeah. You was down here putting together the intro for last lesson.
Yeah.
And I'm upstairs just like scribbling. And I was watching something completely unrelated. It was a lecture that a brother who was Yoruba from the Yoruba tribe, he gave a lecture, I believe, at a prominent university. It was Ivy League college. And it was one thing that he said. It was one thing that he said that sparked this. The Most High said, look into that. And next thing you know, this. Y'all don't see all the notes that I have on here. We did a screen record on this. We did. I took a cam scan of this, and I blanked out all the notes that I had on it, and that's what you see as the map on that we're putting up throughout the lesson. Right? The Most High, it was one thing. The Most High said, hey, look at that. And next thing you know, it took a couple of hours, I was figuring out all of this. And then I have like 3 different renditions of this, by the way. I printed out 4 of these papers, these blank papers of the map of Africa. And all of them are scribbled on in different ways because I made mistakes in some of them and had to go back and correct it. I was like, yeah, no, that's wrong. This here. And it took about 3 or 4 tries. And then once I finally figured it out, I took all the information that I had correct from each map and put it into this one. That's all the Most High, all the Holy Spirit. Y'all see how powerful the Most High is? But he made sure to remind me, even when and it took me so long to put together this lesson on Judah, because there was so much information that the Most High was feeding me at the time. Because the elder knows I start the lessons like 2 weeks early. And I didn't get anything done for the first week and a half. Because there was so much, the Most High was still giving me so much information. The Holy Spirit was still revealing things. And I hadn't yet been shown how to bring forth this information. And what the Most High showed me was, and it's not that easy. It's exactly what I kept saying throughout this lesson. It's not that easy. That's what the Most High told me. It is not that easy. And why is it not that easy? Because it's not our job to completely understand everything. We see through a glass dimly. There's a lot of information on this thing that's still wrong. There's still some things that I need to figure out. Not everything's been revealed. But the Most High showed me enough through his Holy Spirit. I believe Rome has absolutely, they have the rest of our books. Absolutely. And some of them are being held for a time. Earth is holding them, right?
Come on.
Right? Until it's time. Until it's time for those records to be revealed. Right?
Yep.
There's a lot we still don't know. There's a lot there's a lot of history still yet to be uncovered. But we can have comfort that the Most High is still showing us. As long as you remain faithful to his word and keeping his laws, that he continues to reveal knowledge and wisdom unto his chosen. But that was the theme. It was like, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Because I went into it thinking, oh no, yes, I'll just teach the cliche Judah. It's just the Negroes of America. That's what it was going to be. The cliche. But there was so much more underlying histories surrounding it that I wasn't privy to. And it showed. I was like, yeah, that's going to be easy. Judah, Benjamin, and Levi should be the easiest ones. But there were so many questions. The best way, how many of y'all know the best way to study is to study from a place that you either don't know, from a place that you don't know, or that you're trying to learn something? How many of y'all know that? If you go into the Bible looking for something, you're going to find it. I had questions. Those questions that I put in there were questions that I genuinely had. How do I know who is who in Africa? How do I know? How do I know that Benjamin didn't go to the North America and, Judah didn't go to Jamaica? How do I know that? How do I know that that's not the case? And those were answers that I had that I needed the Most High to show me. The Most High, those who seek wisdom will find it. Those who seek it after her will find it, right? You have to seek wisdom in order to gain wisdom. You have to seek the Most High in order to understand the Most High. And we have to keep in mind that it's not our job to understand everything. It's not our job to always be right. I'm not right about everything that's in here. Either that or the answer is incomplete, or the information is incomplete. And I'm okay with that because the Most High will reveal it to me in time. The children of Judah are found in Brazil. I have Brazil first for a reason. In Brazil, the United States, Europe, from Senegal to Liberia, Mali, Niger, from Cameroon to Gabon, Angola, Democratic Republic of Congo, and spread out throughout the Middle East. So a lot of places is where Judah scattered. Notable forefathers of the tribe of Judah. Now, I didn't include David and Solomon because it's, those are a little bit obvious. But Isaiah, Amos, Joel, Habakkuk, Micah, and Zephaniah are all from the tribe of Judah. As the children of Judah are waking up, so are the rest of the tribes, including the tribe of Zebulun and Issachar, who we will unveil next week. It all starts with us. You saw the responsibility that the Most High and our father Jacob placed on the tribe of Judah. And that's not by accident, because we were created to be able to hold that burden and that responsibility. He said, Judah, you're mighty. Use your might to reign over and protect your brothers. He basically made Judah an honorary big brother. Reuben was there. Reuben, Simeon, and Levi were all present when Benjamin was taken and Judah confronted Joseph, but they deferred to Judah. They looked to Judah. They said, all right, what are we going to do? What's the war strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Judah, that was the responsibility that was placed upon Judah, to be the leader spiritually in war. Right? That was our job. Right? So it's important that we as a people understand that whatever we do, the nations will follow. If we begin to follow righteousness, if we begin to follow the proper ways and avenues of the Most High, guess what other people are going to do? They're going to follow us. And every day we continue to see more brothers and sisters continuing to wake up. Good thing is that our people follow trends. A lot of us are sheep.
That's right. That's right.
So if you have the right brothers and sisters wake up and do the right thing, people will follow. Bill Cosby saying Shabbat Shalom. I had no idea till this morning. Bill Cosby saying Shabbat Shalom.
Yep.
On Twitter after being released from prison, thanking a church, an Israelite church, and saying Shabbat Shalom.
Yep. Thanking them for their prayers.
Thanking them for their prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Right? You got brothers and sisters in sports that are taking a stand against this vaccine. And a lot of them are going to be punished for it. A $14.5 thousand fine for not getting the vaccine if you break any COVID protocol. Pitting teammates against each other. I know what that's like. Anybody who's played sports knows how fragile a locker room is.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine I decide not to get vaccinated, right? I come in with my mask a little bit too low. Now, keep in mind, they're saying the vaccine these days. Now we're going into our vaccine segment that we doing weekly now, right? Now, keep in mind, they're saying that the vaccine is becoming less and less. It's becoming, now keep in mind, we talked about the booster. They want people to get the booster. They're saying that the vaccine is becoming less and less effective. And there's still a chance that after being fully vaccinated, you can still get COVID. Now, check this out. Someone is unvaccinated, right? And they've openly said that they don't want to get vaccinated. And there's a case of COVID within the building. Who do you think they're going to blame? Who do you think they're going to blame? Anybody? They're going to blame the one that's not vaccinated, even though it may not even have been them. They may have decided not to get vaccinated, and it's not their fault. It could have been somebody who got fully vaccinated, and they said, "Oh, well, you may get vaccinated, but there's still a chance you can get COVID." And now you have a divided locker room. Now you have a divided locker room because of some phantom virus. Right? There's an article that I found before this. It's from CNBC.com, Health and Science Division. It says, Israel says Pfizer COVID vaccine is just 39% effective as Delta spreads, but still prevents severe illness. So it went from being 99% effective to 39% effective. And there's a booster shot. All of a sudden, after the booster shot is made and finished, now the 2 doses don't work no more all of a sudden. But they do prevent severe illness. The 2-dose vaccine still works very well, preventing people from getting seriously sick, demonstrating 88% effectiveness against hospitalization and 91% effectiveness against severe illness. So what was the purpose of the vaccine again? What was the purpose? What was the purpose of getting the vaccine again? So that you wouldn't get COVID, right? But now you're finding out that you can get COVID. You can still get sick, just not severely sick. Benefits. So you took a risk getting this chemical put in your body so that you wouldn't get a virus that you can still get.
Come on. That's making sense.
Now we went over the vaccine, right? Locusts that were given the power of a scorpion, right? A vaccine. We went over that in the scriptures. This is, I mean, it's obvious. We're looking at this when we look at this. But brothers and sisters are ignorant to it, right? It says that it's becoming less and less effective. And now all of a sudden, yeah, there's a booster shot though for that little extra, that little extra protection.
Didn't see that one coming.
Didn't see it coming. I believe I said this was going to happen the other week. I believe I said that this will happen. I have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure I said that something like this was going to happen. The Delta variant is already in more than 104 countries. Is concerning health officials in the U.S. As they see more breakthrough infections, which occur in fully vaccinated people, even though they are more mild. The vaccine was supposed to keep you from getting the COVID, and it was supposed to protect other people from getting COVID, people around you from getting COVID. And we just found out that the vaccine isn't doing either of those things. So what did you get the vaccine for? What's the purpose of the vaccine then? Any ideas? Come on now. It's time for our brothers and sisters to wake up at this point. You know, those who get the vaccine at this point, it's really, you know, either sheer ignorance or you just don't care. You're fearful. That's what fear does to you. Fear is probably the most the instilling fear is probably the best control tactic that has ever been created. If you can get people to fall into a spirit of fear, you can get them to do whatever the heck you want them to do. Convince people that people around you are dying, even though you're seeing nobody around you dying.
Come on.
Convincing people that COVID will kill you when you most likely already had it. Right? Convincing people that by getting injected with a virus, it'll keep you from getting a virus. Because that works. Because that works. And notice, guess who they're targeting with this thing? The tribe of Judah. Pushing it on black communities first. Same thing with abortion. How many of y'all know that more babies have died from black families than have been born since 1973?
Yeah.
They are slowly killing off our population here in North America. How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all know that black women are 2 times more likely than white and Hispanic women to suffer miscarriage, according to the CDC? By accident? Or do I remember in Egypt when the rulers of Egypt asked the maids to murder the babies when they were born if it was a man child? I remember that. I remember when Herod commanded. I remember when Herod commanded his people to kill all the man children, to the point to where Joseph and Mary had to flee to Egypt. Mm-hmm. So last time I checked, what we're seeing here isn't new. It's not new. They're killing babies. Oh yeah, get an abortion. 19 million abortions since 1973. Black women are 2 times as likely to get to have stillbirths than any other ethnicity of women in America. And vaccinations of children have killed more black babies than any other ethnicity. And our population is waning. And that's a surprise. It's gradual. Very slow. And then on top of that, you take into account interracial marriages are now being promoted. Yeah. So they're purging the bloodline. Come on now. Richard Nixon said it. Richard Nixon literally said it on his tapes. He literally said that blacks won't last 500 years. And he literally said to the other people on the phone call, he said, you know it, Josie knows it because of her study at, I think it was Cambridge. He said, black people won't last 500 years. You know it, I know it, they know it, she know it. How do you think they're managing to do that? Get the vaccine, get an abortion. Interracial marriage is okay, and let's keep killing those babies as they're born. The ones who decide not to get vaccinated. Because I'm telling you, black women don't have a problem having babies. Keep in mind, prior to Bill Gates' arrival in Africa, Africa had the largest growing population. Sub-Saharan Africa had the largest growing population in the world. Black women can have babies. But between the forced sterilization and everything like that, it came to a screeching halt right after Bill Gates arrived with his vaccinations. Coincidence? I mean, come on, y'all. The tents of Judah must be saved first. They must be woken up first. Because if we're not woken up first of all, if the children of Israel, if the children of Judah, if the tribe of Judah isn't awakened first, another tribe can usurp authority over Judah. That's number one. But number two, if Judah doesn't know what's coming against them, we don't know how to protect ourselves. If we don't know the enemy, if we don't know what the enemy's tactics are, we can't defend ourselves, making us vulnerable. So he has to save the tents of Judah first to prevent exactly in every way possible. The tribe of Judah, everybody. That is the conclusion of our lesson today, the tribe of Judah. And next week we'll be going into the tribes of Zebulun and Issachar. It's going to be a really good lesson next week, everybody. Now I was telling Elder, a lot of brothers and sisters are going to watch this and say, you on point. Y'all brothers on point with this information here about the tribe of Judah. Yeah, they show a lot scattered in Brazil, ain't they? They show a lot of Negroes, but when they get to the next ones, they mess around and go backwards. They mess around and look at Simeon. Yeah, you was on point with Levi, but you went off with Simeon, brother.
You might as well expect that to happen. That's crazy.
Next week, this lesson is going to get a whole lot different reviews from brothers and sisters than we're going to get in these next coming weeks up until Benjamin. I promise you that. I promise you that.
That's right.
All of a sudden, we're going to be off. Hey, Will's on point, but next week we're gonna be off. Is what they got for us next week. But that's okay. That's okay. You know, this isn't about us.
That's right.
We've said it before. I've said it. We've said it before. The House of Judah International Fellowship does not fear any man, but the Most High in Christ.
That's right.
We don't fear nobody. We aren't afraid of nothing. All we do is we pray, we study, we read the word, and we give to the people what the Most High reveals to us.
Yep.
That's all we can do. We're just servants. Service of the Most High. That's it.
Pray, prepare, and show up. That's it.
Exactly. That's all it is.
That's all it is.
Right? All praise to the Most High. Hi, Bashem and Shine, everybody.
That's right.
All right. So that is the conclusion of today's lesson. We want to shout out our brothers and sisters in Sierra Leone, the leadership in Sierra Leone, Elder Johannes, Bishop Michael, Deacon Isaac, Shalom. I know you guys were watching in the latter half, so Shalom to you all, and blessings to those of our the brothers and sisters in the Philippines that are also watching. All praise to the Most High for y'all as well.
Oh yeah, and don't miss Bishop Michael's lessons. They're on our Facebook page. Definitely. Awesome.
Yeah, because he be coming with Bishop Michael come with some heat in them lessons. So y'all make sure that y'all go ahead and tune into those as well.
And just so you know, Bishop Michael is the one all the way on the end on the right. Bishop Michael.
Khan. All praises to the Most High. All praises. Do we have any questions in the chat or in the room? Do we have any questions or comments?
I was going to say, based upon your lesson today and the things that the Holy Spirit brought forth through you, this is why we see and understand why everything is, there's a level of burden that is placed upon the Black population in this country, mainly Judah, to participate in the antics that are in our country right now, whether it's the vaccine, whether it's voting. This is why there is such a huge push, because we are the influencers. And so because they know who we are and they understand the level of leadership that the Most High and authority that He's put on us, even though we don't see it, this is why they keep pushing it on us, even though we make up the minority of what they claim the population of this country actually is. One would have to wonder, how is it that we account for what they say is 14% of the population, yet when it comes to voting, you push us more to vote as if the election is up to us.
And they diminish our numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, the statistics clearly show here in the United States, there were more generational slaves than there were in South America. What does that mean? That means that more slaves were marrying and having children in the North than they were in South America. A lot of the slaves in South America were just straight up being killed before they die, when they're too old to work, right? So our population here in America is huge. It's a lot larger than what they would like you to believe. They just want their numbers to be more gratified and large than what they actually are.
Correct.
Right. That's so we're I'm sorry, we're not 13% of the population. It's not true. It's simply not true. That figure is too small. We're much larger of a percentage than that. So overall, that's absolutely true. What you put out there is our people are extremely powerful, and the best way to disrupt the powerful people is to spread them out and make them believe that they're the minority.
That's right.
I'm sorry, but it doesn't. With the people that reproduce the way that we do, I believe the equation was there were 6 slaves for every master, for every one master. So when you take that into account and all the multiplying, because like I said, brothers and sisters can have children. That's what we can do, and not to mention those when we began to mix with the Native American population, which I didn't even go into. We won't be going into that until we get Gad, I believe, the week after next, right? So when we take that into account, we are way more numerous than Esau. They're made small. They're one of the smallest nations in the world, let alone just in America. Like when you look at Russia and stuff like that, and Germany, we have majority populations there too. Even in the UK, there's a lot more of us than them. They just cram us into small ghettos in the UK to make it seem like there's less, because they have more space, I guess, however you want to put it, over there. But it's very, very clear that we're the majority over in that country, and in this country too. It's just we as the tribe of Judah can't continue to neglect our people elsewhere. We make it seem like we only exist here. We make it seem like, oh yeah, Judah's in North America and in Africa, that's it. When there's more of us. They don't look like us. They may not sound like us, but it's a lot of us. In fact, it was us, the tribe of Judah, that invented one of the most lethal fighting styles that was ever created, and that's used in Brazil to this day. It's actually illegal in Brazil. They made it illegal in Brazil because they're afraid that the slaves would use it to overthrow the government. Right? So, I mean, the power of our people is evident. It's a matter of how we use that power and how we direct it for the Most High that determines, whether or not, the Most High comes to our aid. Because like I said, Judah was a powerful, fierce, strong fighter, but it wasn't him. And he knew that. That's why he said, don't you know that God is on our side? What you fearful for? Judah was able to move with a certain confidence level because he knew he had God in his back pocket. He knew he had God over his shoulder. He knew he had the Most High over his shoulder. So he said, I don't need to move in fear. Yeah, I can move with a certain level of confidence because I have the Most High. And that's how we have to begin to move. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves, but understanding that as long as we're on the right track, the Most High will be with us. All right. So if we don't have any more questions,
how do you go about waking up Judah?
Go about waking up the tribes of Judah. It's the same thing as what the Most High told Ezekiel in Ezekiel chapter 37 in the Valley of the Dry Bones. He said, "Speak into the wind." Ezekiel wasn't speaking specifically to the bones. Mm-hmm. He was speaking to the wind, and those words fell upon those bodies, and they arose from sleep. Right? They arose from their dry and dead state. Right? So the way we wake our brothers and sisters up is by speaking to the wind. When we go out, when we start hitting these streets internationally, we're not going to be speaking to any particular person. We're just going to be speaking the truth and who those words fall upon.
And we're doing that right now.
Yeah, yeah. So when we go out, when we speak, we're speaking to the wind, and who those words fall upon, it'll be the Most High who wakes those people up. It's not our job, right? And it's some people from other churches that come. That's cool too. The mission isn't. The scriptures say that the Most High gives the increase. One person plants a seed, another person waters. The Most High gives the increase. All we were commanded to do was speak. All Judah had to do was shout. The Most High did all the other work. Did the rest of the work. We have a question in the chat. Isaiah chapter 3. Does this help identify the tribe of Judah no matter where we have been scattered? Isaiah chapter 3. Let's get that. I'm gonna pull that up real quick.
Let's see.
Isaiah 3.
Go ahead and read that for me.
The first verse?
Yeah, the first verse.
For behold, the Lord of hosts, will take away from Jerusalem and Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water. Mm-hmm. The mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet and the prudent and the ancient, the captain of 50 and the honorable man, mm-hmm. and the counselor and the cunning artificer and the eloquent orator. Mm-hmm. And I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. Mm-hmm. And the people shall be oppressed, every one by another. Mm-hmm. Everyone by his neighbor. Mm-hmm. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancient, mm-hmm. and the base against the honorable. Mm-hmm. When a man shall take hold of his brother of the house of his father, saying, Thou hast clothing, be thou a ruler, and let this room be under thy hand. Mm-hmm. In that day shall he swear, saying, I will not be an healer, for in my house is neither bread nor clothing. Mm-hmm. Make me not a ruler of the people. Mm-hmm. For Jerusalem is ruined and Judah is fallen. Mm-hmm. because their tongue and their doing is against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory. The show of their countenance doth witness against them, and they declare their sin in Sodom, they hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves.
Yeah, and this particular passage of scripture, yes, it absolutely can be used to identify the children of Israel. Absolutely. But it's not just referring to the tribe of Judah. How do we know? Jerusalem is ruined. This is talking about the capital of Israel. All the tribes of Israel, when we were one nation, Jerusalem was their capital. We returned to Jerusalem as a nation and worship there. And it says Judah is fallen. So when Jerusalem and Judah falls, guess who else falls? The nation, right? The nation falls when the king falls, right? Even though the queen is the most powerful on the chessboard, it's not until the king falls that the game is over. Right? It's the same thing here. It says Jerusalem is ruined and Judah is fallen because their tongue and their doing is against the Lord to provoke the eyes of his glory. If Judah had stayed on track, say Judah never went off, the children of Israel never would have fallen. Not completely. Not completely. Right? And how do we know? Because it said in verse 16, it says, moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, right? The daughters of Zion isn't just the children of Judah. The daughters of Zion are all the daughters of Israel. Right? So yes, it can be used to find the tribe of Judah, but it's almost like Deuteronomy 28, where it encompasses the curses that would affect all the tribes of Israel. So yeah, but this is a really good chapter. I suggest anybody go and read this scriptures and read this chapter in their own time. But there's a lot in this. There's a lot in it where it says, I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. Right? It's talking about people who are foolish. Right? You have these people like these foolish young people like Lil Nas X leading movements, disregarding the elders, the ancients, right? Dismissing the wisdom that comes with age, the elders, right? And not just the elders, but that's talking about the ancients, even of the scriptures, right? Dismissing the scriptures, dismissing the Bible, dismissing Moses, dismissing Aaron, dismissing David, right? These young people who dismiss the wisdom that comes with age and with time, right? And are leading our people in ignorance. That's a big part of it as well. But the water, that was a really good a really good scripture. But yeah, absolutely, it can be used to identify Judah, and it can be used to identify really any other tribe as well. Crazy they speak about the Delta variant. Crazy they yeah, it was older. Yeah. All right. So yeah, if we don't have any more questions, and any more comments, do we have any more questions or comments? All right. So with that, we have come to the conclusion of our lesson. Thank you for tuning in, all those who are watching, and those who do come across this lesson. All praise to the Most High. I hope you were edified. We pray that you were edified by this lesson. We give all thanks and praise to the Most High, by Hashem Yeshaya, Wa Rawak. Those who do not speak the Hebrew, that is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We just need to, as a nation, stay prayed up and continue to endure in these times of trouble. Jacob's trouble is coming to an end.
That's right.
So with that, we will say Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.